Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News Channel. We have kind of a different program tonight. We're going to go a little casual, not quite so formal. Ian, aka Dragon, will be joining us when we finish up with this little intro to talk a little bit about separatism. He called me earlier in the day, said that he wanted to talk out a few things because I'd mentioned some of the key points surrounding the issue out there in Alberta, which some people would like to see as an independent sovereign state. And I said, well, sure, come on, we'll have a discussion and kind of explore things in a little more detail. And I think the conversation might take some, well, it could really go in any direction tonight. So I'm going to let him kind of take the lead on a lot of this stuff. I know that we have all of this stuff going on in the Strait of Hormuz as well, and we've been following that through the week. But honestly, it's exactly what I said it would be, a great big nothing burger, at least so far, because the negotiations that were basically all but signed and sealed and delivered, well, that's because they weren't signed, sealed, and delivered, as Donald Trump was leading us to believe. There's still quite some distance from having an actual agreement with Iran digging its heels in, and Trump. Who knows who to believe in the whole thing? All I know is the strait still isn't really open, and there really isn't a deal. And then over in Ukraine, it's still a war of words, escalating rhetoric with, I think, Russian troops becoming frustrated, bogged down, stymied. It's not just a standstill or a standoff at this point. It is I think that Russia might even be losing some ground to talk about Russian troops on the front line suffering some pretty heavy losses. So there's all of that and the ongoing threats from Russia saying that it's time to take the gloves off, at least from the hawks in the Kremlin, looking to maybe even attack NATO, European targets outside of Ukraine. That if that happens, man, it's a whole new ball game over there, and it gets us that much closer to the proverbial top of the hour, the hands of midnight. Am I saying that correctly? Doomsday. With that being said, when we come back, we'll tell you about the separatist plan to deport the vaccinated. Yeah, you heard that right. Not the unvaccinated, the vaccinated. True thing. Not making it up. We'll explore that and a whole lot more when we come back with Ian on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Let's bring in our Maverick from Montreal. There he is. Hello, sir.
with the
How are you
shirt.
tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you asked for it. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get me started. I know, and that's dangerous if you do that. So you know that. But good to have you here because you're going to bring a bit of a Quebec perspective to the talk of separatism, the whole issue surrounding separatism in Alberta and now Quebec, where separatist flames have been rekindled. But I'm just going to throw it over to you to kind of see where you want to kick things off tonight. What's on your mind, sir? Because you're the one who phoned me earlier in the day.
Well, you just said it. Why not? Can we go into the direction of the ideology of things and the cultural thing? Because actually, there's a difference between the Alberta and the Quebec separation movement. Actually, in Quebec, it's more of a cultural thing and identity. Okay, it's because we're kind of fed up with Ottawa, kind of just putting our French culture under the rug. Where in Alberta, what you have, it's the ideology of anti Ottawa or anti WEF of things, where Ottawa is basically built it around WEF nowadays since Trudeau, and yeah, well, that's where they want to separate, and it's getting to a bad point right now, I think.
Okay, so what exactly was it that prompted the call? What did I say? What did I do now to to get this? Because you said that I had been, what was it you said I was talking about that you wanted to explore?
Yeah, yesterday you
Um,
said a few points in your editorial about the separation, and what you said about the
oh,
Clarity Act
and
was
everybody
actually a
having a
good thing.
voice, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
all Canadians should be allowed to engage in the conversation.
Exactly. And actually, I was opening the conversation with, should we all in a national state actually have a say in that referendum? Because Alberta, in certain ways, does have a lot of impact in the Canadian politics, and not only by economics or by just being part of Canada. I mean, I think it's a national thing. So we could probably argue that it's a national decision, but at the same time, the Constitution tells us that it's a sovereign regional thing. So
No, I wouldn't say that. The Constitution does make it clear that no province can unilaterally separate. So at some point during the process, even if there is a vote in favor of separation, even if it's 50% plus one person or more, uh, that would just trigger the need for Ottawa to engage in negotiations with any given province. But then after that, a constitutional amendment would be necessary. Uh, the And that would require any change to the constitution automatically requires, I think it's 7 out of 10 provinces to approve any amendment. So there's that triggers another process upon another process. And so yes, every province, then every stakeholder, if you will, gets a say to one degree or another in the entire process and decision as to whether any province would ever be able to secede from confederation.
that's it. But at the same time, you have the Clarity Act, who basically stipulate that not only you need more than 51% because
Yeah.
it needs a clear majority to vote in, not only in the vote itself, but also as the population needs to be to the poll to make a decision.
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
just give you an example. If only like 40% of the population of Quebec goes to the poll on a referendum and say 30% of those 40% say yes, is 40% of the population of Quebec going to take the decision for the 60 other person that didn't vote? That's
That's
another
yeah.
layer.
That's where the Clarity Act comes in, and I know some of the legal advocates for in favor of separation in Alberta are saying that the Clarity Act, I think they're arguing that won't necessarily apply because they're looking at previous Supreme Court of Canada decisions and so on. They're trying to find a way around that, but that is pretty much what the Clarity Act stipulates, is that 50% plus, say, one person alone doesn't automatically guarantee separation. You need a clear majority. And so the question then becomes, what does clear mean? And you touched on one of the issues right there. If you only have, if only, say, 10% of the population shows up to vote, then of that 10%, you get 50% plus one person. Now you only have 50% of 10% of the population. So what are you looking at? 5% of the population, whatever. And then from that, that 5% dictates what 95% of the people would have to live with, as well as the rest of Canada. No, it doesn't work that way. So
That's it.
you have to have a substantial turnout at the polls to show that you have a clear majority and a clear mandate from the people to engage in negotiations toward possible separation. So yes, I take that as being correct. Yeah, what you said.
Yeah, well, this is what I think it is. Well, it is what things constitute to now. And the consequences of all that is that we have a lot of division, and that division, well, it's not going in the right direction, I think, and we're not in the right direction at all.
So I've seen headlines like this over the past few days. So I'll get you to comment on it because you're closer to this than I am, being in Quebec. Says Quebec's PQ Parti Québécois leader defends Alberta referendum plan and rebukes Carney criticism. What's it like up there in Montreal where you're situated? Is it, are you hearing, rekindling? Is there a new interest in separation on the Quebec front?
Most of the people I know personally don't like the idea of separation right now.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one out of three will probably be agreeing with it. The rest of the, like, two people out of three will say, no, I'm not agreeing with the separation for a certain reason. And one of the reasons that I actually get to is that how much of a consequences it will have on our economic, first of all, because we don't have all the resources much to a certain degree. And if we go to the US, how much it will have some consequences on our economy again. Or say, for example, we love our free healthcare system, right? We don't want to go to the US where you're going to have to pay $50,000 for a heart attack or a surgery, something. It's, yeah, the logic is there.
Yeah, well, as I was telling you earlier today when you phoned, yesterday I went to the doctor, but I don't have a family doctor. Well, I didn't. So I've been using walk-in clinics for many, 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 many years. Now, of course, I'm here in Ontario, but we have a conservative government in Ontario. They have been making a lot of changes to the healthcare system, kind of giving us something more hybrid. It isn't just socialized. They've injected more privatization into the system. There's more telehealth. If you're in remote areas, you have access to doctors now via video calls and things like that, even at walk-in clinics. But yesterday, I went to this new walk-in clinic here in my hometown of Chatham in Ontario. And I'll have to tell you, here's my experience, okay? I go in. They're very, very, very busy. It's a new pharmacy. They have the walk-in clinic there as part of it. I'm in. They're really busy. I made an appointment so I could come back later in the afternoon, same day. I walk in. They took me in right away. And when they gave me the form to fill out, it said, do you want a family doctor? Do you need one? I went, yeah. So I checked that off. And by the time I left that clinic yesterday, I had a prescription that I needed. They filled it for me. I got it at the pharmacy, new place. Met a very friendly doctor, a very friendly receptionist, and they signed me up for a brand new family physician, which I haven't had. And oh my gosh, it's got to be 20 years since I've had a family doctor. And like that yesterday, bam, family doctor. I go back on Monday. for my first meet and greet with my new family doctor. And here's the thing. Um, Now that sounds pretty darn good, right? And it was fast, it was efficient. And do you know why I got this family doctor? Immigration. Because Ontario's had this long-standing shortage of doctors going all the way back to like the 19 late 80s, 1990s, really started with liberal Premier David Peterson, who brought in new rules to cap doctors' wages. As a result of that, we got an exodus of doctors leaving the province, shutting down their practices, and it's dragged on and on. We've never really recovered from that here in Ontario. But yesterday, the doctors working at this clinic, like everybody in there, I don't know what country they're from, but it's probably might be Pakistan. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Maybe India. I don't know. Probably India. So anyway, but everybody working in there was, I think they're probably all living over in this part of our town that a lot of Muslims have moved in there. And there's a high school that they had to close years ago. They reopened it as a private school just for people in that part of the community. It's a private school run separate from the Catholic school board or the public school board. So that's all viable again. That's all working. The that neighborhood has kind of been built back up. And because when I went in there, I'll tell you, all these other walk-in clinics kept closing in town. I'm not exactly sure why, but not really aggressive about keeping them open. These people were on it, man. I'm telling you, like they want the business. They want new patients. They want you can just tell. And they wanted me to get my prescription there because they want to do business. I was content to just walk out the door and go to my regular pharmacy on the other side of town, but they wanted to provide the service. Obviously, they want to make the money, right? But at the same time, they were providing incredible service, and I've got a family doctor. So I'll tell you
That
how that goes on Monday. Like I couldn't get a doctor here for
that's because
years.
you're lucky, man. Because I've been waiting for 10 years to have mine.
Uh, so I know some people. I don't want that. I don't want that doctor because he's got a heavy accent or whatever. Um, but I'll tell you, like they all, they
I
all
would
speak
jump on him.
English. They all speak English and super friendly. And I got the service that I needed. So what do I have to complain about from yesterday? Nothing. It was
I would jump
fantastic.
on that. I would jump on that doctor to have my own family doctor. I would jump on it for sure. It's a golden thing for, yeah, man.
The
I mean,
gold ticket, and I didn't
it's a
have to
gold
pay $1
ticket.
million to get into Donald Trump's America. I got it right here in town. That's worth a lot to me because then you get continuity of care, and I hope that my doctor is a likable guy. But from my experience yesterday, I expect he will be. So I'm
Sure
happy
is.
about that. Just letting you know. But that's why that's the difference between the liberal governments and the long time ago an NDP government here and this conservative government we have now, because they like these clinics, they're private business elements to them, and he's allowing some private stuff to go on and but still maintaining public access and just a lot of changes. And so recent visits to the hospital over the past couple of years, every time I go, it seems to be getting better. And I've been highly critical of the healthcare system here in Ontario over the years, as you know, extremely critical. But I have to give credit where credit is due. After all these years, I have a family doctor. So thanks
I've
for that.
I've been critical about Quebec's health care system too, but the problem is that we have shortage too, and the people are so much getting burnouts, or I mean, they're burning themselves out to give us a good service to a certain degree. So kudo to our nurses and whatnot in Montreal and Quebec because we need them, but at the same time, it's hard for them, and I do understand that, and that's the problem. We have a scarce of those good people around here, but they still
Yeah.
show up with a beautiful smile, try to be as human as possible when they treat you. And what I like to do is having a fun talk with the doctor, and ask question about what they're doing and whatnot, and they understand that I understand what they're doing to me. So at the same time, it's fun because I have some, bit of medical knowledge here and there, but not that much. But it's fun to interact that way. So they laugh with me all the time. So
Yeah. So back to
the separatist movement.
the separatist issue here in Canada, and maybe we'll talk a little bit tonight too about what's going on internationally with regard to some of these issues that dovetail uh, immigration, which I just mentioned, definitely front and center as one of the key driving issues out there in Alberta, and I know that that's been an issue in Quebec over the years as well. But have you been? So have you been? You must be following a lot of that stuff, right? Like, um,
Brexit or
well, there's that issue over in Europe, and certainly you have the this by-election going on in Britain right now that's getting international attention with Labor and Reform kind of battling to see who wins there. But there's also this new Restore Party, which is making some inroads, but in the polling, still low in the numbers. But it's a factor, splitting the
Mhm.
vote maybe on the right. But immigration is there, I think, their number one issue. Uh, and that seems to be what's kind of driving a lot of what's going on in Alberta, although I don't know that they're really highlighting that for the general public right now. What are your thoughts? Have you been what do you think is driving things out there?
Yeah, there's a little bit of immigration, but I think the Brexit was, well, it's a thing that been long time ago on the on the shelf, if I can put it this way. Um, it's all about immigration to a certain degree. The reason why people wanted to exist, it's that they didn't wanted the same political system that they had, and also that they wanted to have a better place, or I mean, less immigration and whatnot. So basically, it's a form of um, existential reason in that regard in Europe. So I think it has some overlapping things here in a certain way. It does
Yeah,
overlap.
yeah. Well, as I was preparing for tonight's broadcast, I was putting together some stuff. I've been working on stuff for weeks actually, uh, and since we're doing this now, I guess I can highlight a few things that I've been researching. And I mentioned this at the beginning of the program. Are you aware that, like, here's the thing: all these separatists out in Alberta, and I'm going to say that a lot of these political activists, even the political parties, the groups, the politicians, they especially on the opposition or opposition side, okay? Not the governing parties so much because you can see what they're doing. But on the other side, they're not necessarily telling you what they really want to do or what they will do. They engage in a lot of grievance sharing. They complain a lot to get people upset, but sometimes they, after doing all the complaining, they don't really tell you what it is they're going to do. So, for instance, are you familiar at all with the deportation plan on the separatist side in Alberta?
I knew from what you said the other day that they were planning on, if you're not born in Alberta, you might get deported, stuff like this. But
Mhm.
the vaccine one is a new thing for me. So please enlighten me.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I don't think these people are really focused on freedom at all. Even though at the center of the separatist movement out in Alberta, they'll tell you that with the freedom movement, right? But I don't think they're about freedom at all because their ideology, the approach, everything that they're doing smacks of authoritarianism to me. That's my opinion. The and what you just touched on there, these are two core policy points. Let me see. I've got if you go to the Alberta Prosperity Project, you don't have to. I think I've got it here. Um, they've got a plan that they have published, and you can go and read these things. But a lot of the talking points in there they don't talk about. A lot of the stuff is kind of like um, it's the quiet part that they never say aloud because it'll leave them open to criticism. One thing that you mentioned for sure was who gets to be a citizen if they separate, That's a major issue. So what they're saying is that only people born in Alberta will get to be Alberta citizens. Only people born in Alberta will have the right to vote. Now, that to me sounds pretty extreme. And I don't think the people out there are aware that the Alberta Prosperity Project advocates for that, calls for that. Had you heard of that before I mentioned it to you the other day?
I was
Or earlier
hearing
today?
about it actually. I
Yeah.
was hearing about it, but like I said, the vaccine portion, no, but the born or not born in Alberta, that I was aware of. And
Mhm.
basically, I was making my research on that. And basically, that's pure ultra nationalism. I will be honest with you, that's pure ultra nationalism.
It goes beyond pure ultranationalism. There's no other democratic country on the face of the earth that has a policy that restrictive. None, not one. They would be the only one with a citizenship policy that heavy. Now, the reason I became aware of it was because former Premier Jason Kenney earlier this week in a debate with separatist lawyer Keith Wilson said Albertans should be careful because they could lose their Canadian citizenship if Alberta separates.
Yep, that's true.
And that is possible. Meanwhile, the separatists are saying, "Oh no, that won't happen. They can't take your Canadian citizenship away." No, there's no guarantee that you get to keep your Canadian citizenship because if there is separation, that triggers negotiation and a complete reopening of this constitution. Amendments will be made because everything has to be looked at again if they separate, including who gets to be a Canadian citizen. So and benefits and the Canadian pension plan and federal assets. And in fact, before I show you the other stuff, maybe I can find, I've got a whole list of things that would actually have to be dealt with, like the real, here it is here.
Well, it's the hypocrisy of we don't have any constitution written or anything of
Yeah.
that sort, but we need to follow the constitution to do the right thing with the separation. Do we have or not as a constitution? Make up your mind, guys.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Absolutely. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment too, since we're on the topic. Here is, do I have it? Yeah, here it is here. I didn't create this. This is a social media post, but I think it's pretty darn accurate. If they separate, look at all the things that have to be negotiated. This is just a partial list.
Wow.
Yeah, they'll have to negotiate the share of the national debt, split the federal assets. They'll have to deal with the creation of their own foreign embassies and foreign property. What do you do with all the crown corporations that have assets inside Alberta? Federal pension plan. What do you do with it? What about their own currency? They've talked a little bit about that, but I think that a lot of what they say is pie in the sky. Central bank access, deposit insurance and banking rules, citizenship and dual nationality. Like, will Canada allow people who separate to keep their Canadian citizenship and all the privileges there that reside within all of that while becoming an Alberta citizen? This basically then creates a two-tier form of citizenship within the geographic region of what would have been the former Canada. That it wouldn't be fair at all because then Albertans would contribute nothing to Canada while retaining all of the rights of citizenship on the other side. You have to look at what happens to your passports, which is what Jason Kenney was highlighting in his speech the other night. You might lose your Canadian passport. Free movement across the new border, that has to be negotiated. Who's to say that the border will just be free and open? You'll have to put up border controls there, right? And who's to say that the boundary lines as they're written right now would even remain the same? Indigenous treaty rights, of course, that's a big issue. Like, look at all of these things. So you have to deal with all of these issues. This is why you have to enter into negotiations. If indeed the federal government would even actually finally agree to go along with it, there would be further discussions that would happen with the other provinces and a whole process. I think that the real danger here, though, Ian, is that the separatists out in Alberta don't really want to follow the rules, haven't really necessarily been following the rules. They just think that a 50% plus one person is enough to trigger this whole thing. And then I think they're going to be running on down to Washington or maybe Mar-a-Lago to meet with their U.S. MAGA friends, and they're going to be looking for some sort of military support, which they apparently seem ready to outsource, to hire or contract with the U.S. military to come in and provide support. I think it could potentially lead to some sort of a civil war if we're not careful. It's that freaking serious. And so this whole idea that only people born in Alberta would get to be actual citizens of Alberta, I think that's extremely severe, and it's a very real thing. I'm not making it up. It's been highlighted now in an op-ed in the Toronto Star by a reporter who attended some of these separatist rallies. And there are quotes directly from Mitch Sylvester, the man who really drove the entire separatist petition program. Here it is here. More babies, more guns, lower taxes, and fewer immigrants. What Alberta separatists are promising and what they can actually deliver. That's an editorial from earlier this month. And a lot of this is highlighted in there. There have been a couple of protests like that, or articles highlighting some of these policy points.
Oh, we have the same in Montreal too. There's some protests going on once in a while, but I mean, there were one I think 2 weeks ago, but that's about it. You know, we don't go every week's contesting about it.
So the point being, if you live in Alberta right now and you were not born there, and these guys get their separation vote and they end up being the ones kind of running the show out there, you may not have a right to vote in the country that has been created that you are now living in. So you wouldn't actually have a voice. So a lot of these people who will be going to the poll on October 19th to vote on this referendum on whether there should be a referendum, I don't think a lot of them are even aware of how extreme the policy is within the Alberta Prosperity Project proposal, the plan that they've published online. And in it, Mitch Sylvester actually says, quote, "Our Constitution, it says that you're going to have to be born in Alberta to become a citizen." He told the crowd at one event I attended. This is a direct quote of him through one of these articles that reported on what he was saying at these events, separatist events. He says, "So we're going to have to get those girls making more babies." I highlighted this I think it was last night. And so you vote for separation thinking that you're going to get more democracy. You vote for separation thinking you're going to have a greater voice in Ottawa. No, if you vote for this and you weren't born there, you don't get citizenship. You better pray that you get to keep your Canadian citizenship. You maybe don't get to vote at all in the new country that's created that you live in, reside in, and you're building your life in. That this would include people from other parts of Canada who have moved to Alberta. You wouldn't get to vote. You wouldn't become an Alberta citizen. I don't know, like this leaves a very small number of people who would actually control everything in Alberta. Only people of the land, born on the land.
Blood and soil.
Right.
This
now
is Germany 1936, blood and soil.
It's worse. Not even Adolf Hitler had a policy that restrictive. Now, under Nazi Germany, their citizenship requirements were focused on race, genetics, blood, okay? But not even Nazi Germany was that authoritarian, that restrictive on citizenship and voting rights.
They would leave you 2 generations back of Jewish ancestry. More than that, you were kind of castrated. but that's
Like,
basically it. And even probably one half of your family tree kind of thing.
honestly, until a few days ago, I didn't even know that this was in their APP project. Alberta Prosperity Plan is what they call it. The Alberta Prosperity Project. Okay. Didn't know. This flabbergasts me. This is ghastly, is what this is. It's unbelievable. But there it is. It's in black and white in their APP plan.
Mm.
And again, man, I am not making it up. Okay. Uh, it's you can go find it online quite easily. In fact, right here, here is this is this theirs? I've got two of them up here from this might be the yeah, no, this is the other one. Here it is. The value of freedom is what they call it. It's online. These are taken directly from this website, this PDF that you can download for yourself from their website. The value of freedom. A draft fully costed fiscal plan for an independent Alberta. Open for public discussion, and we're discussing it now. It blew my mind.
Hmm.
So why would any like if you're unless you're born there, why the hell would you vote for separation? Because it'll take away your voice. It'll silence you. That's what they're saying out there too, right? Oh, all you other Canadians, you shut up. You need to stay out of this debate. Albertans will decide. No, this affects the entire country, as you highlighted. It's a very important issue that affects every Canadian, every First Nations person, everybody in Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, BC, Northwest Territories, everywhere, right across the country. Every Canadian should have some sort of a say in this process.
Hmm. Even me, as a Quebecer, I
Of
should
course,
have a say on Alberta's fate
and
because, in
vice
a
versa.
certain way, it does have a lot of overlap
Do
with
you know
us.
what? Right. You know why they want to do this? It's becoming painfully clear why. Because they can't win an election. That's why these small group of people can't win an election because their ideology, their politics, it's so radical, people won't vote for it. So what they've done is they've wrapped this up into a separation debate. They've gone down to the states to gin up some support down there. They've got the backing of I think business interests, oil interests who have their eyes on the prize, which is the oil and the resources in Alberta. So they're saying, yeah, let's break this thing up. We can come in there and exert more control. We'll prevent any of that oil from going to China. We'll have it all for ourselves down here in America. And you've got big money. That's a lot of what's at stake here. And you can see that because the separatists out there have been talking about $500 billion line of credit, about outsourcing or contracting with U.S. military to come in and supply, defense for them. And while they're saying they want an independent Alberta, it's becoming also painfully clear that if there is a successful separation, it won't be long before the United States just swallows up that province and maybe the entire country of Canada because it'll drive like literally a physical wedge right in between BC and the other side of Canada on the other side. And I think it's then divide and conquer as part of the strategy.
Actually, I think you're right. And I mean, look, every time that, for example, Carney, okay, we don't like all Carney. I know we kind of hate the guy sometime, but look, he comes around and say, "Look, Alberta, I got the pipeline dream pipe for you.
Yeah.
It's everything's gonna be signed. We're working on it." People goes around and say, "Oh yeah, you took a year and a half to go there, blah blah blah, whatever." I mean, look, do you want a pipeline or not? But then they go like, yeah, but no, you didn't ask for the natives about it. I mean, guys,
Yeah.
make up your mind. You want something from us, we give you. Now that we give it to you, it's like, yeah, like you said yesterday, I wanted a bike, but now you gave me a mountain bike instead of a race bike, and
Mhm.
it's red instead of blue like I wanted. So bring it back to the merchant, or yeah.
You
Go back to
also,
the store.
yeah. You also mentioned to me that you've been seeing some U.S. influencers talking about Alberta separation. I've seen Glenn Beck doing videos on it. Of course, prior to that, we had Tucker Carlson. We've seen Joe Rogan talking about it. And now I think you were talking about Turning Point USA, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've heard about Turning Point USA would have their chapter here in Quebec and probably around Canada. So, I mean,
Mhm.
is there any overlap in there? I think there is.
Well, I think they definitely have an interest in Canada because they just produced a video, which I wouldn't say this is journalism. It isn't. TPUSA is not a journalistic endeavor or an enterprise. It's a political action group. Okay, that's what they are. They're activists. They're pro MAGA, pro right hand conservative politics. Charlie Kirk, all that, and they have this new video out. And in the center of this video, they actually highlight exactly what I was talking about, Ian, which is you've got this separatist lawyer, Jeffrey Rath, is piping up again, talking about that pipeline, which right here, that pipeline to the West Coast that they've been making such a ruckus about, basing this entire separation movement on. Can't get a pipeline built to the West Coast. That's why we have to separate. Well, I told you the other night, he kind of came out and said what he hadn't been saying before, none of them, which is that they don't really want that pipeline built to the West Coast. It's never been about the pipeline to the West Coast. They want to stop the pipeline from being built to the West Coast. Well, they've been making that one of the central issues. And then right in the center of this TPUSA promo, and that's what it is. It's a let's screw Canada over and break up the country promotional video from Turning Point USA. Jeffrey Rath is inserted in there with all the usual suspects on the separatist side alongside all of them. And what's he talking about? China. China in this TPUSA video. Let me play the clip, just a portion of it here from this is the TPUSA Let's Take Over Canada video.
West Coast tanker ban. There's no East Coast tanker ban. Tankers can go up and down the Gulf of St. Lawrence, which, from an ecological perspective, are far more fragile waters than the Pacific, the waters of the Pacific Northwest. But they can have tankers going up and down the St. Lawrence, but you can't have them off the West Coast because the whole point is to shut in, Alberta oil, until communist China.
So he makes this. He's complaining. Oh, we can't make it work on the West Coast. But listen to him now. He goes from that and then pivots. This is contradictory because on the one hand, he's like, we have to have this over on the West Coast, but now he doesn't really want it on the West Coast because where would all that oil go? We have a pipeline that goes to the West Coast now, and they've increased capacity on that. It goes to China. He doesn't like that. He doesn't want that. The U.S. oil companies don't want that. And he seems to really, I don't know, have an affinity for that point of view. You can imagine why, if you really want to stretch your imagination, not very much.
China takes over enough of the Alberta oil field that they have 100% of the throughput for a pipeline. And then at that point, they have 100% of the throughput. You can't have them off the West Coast because the whole point is to shut in, Alberta oil, until communist China takes over enough of the Alberta oil field that they have 100% of the throughput for a pipeline. And then at that point, it's going to be First Nations be damned, British Columbia be damned. China will have its pipeline where 100% of the throughput goes directly from Alberta to China. We're watching it, unfold in real time. They bought up Nexon, they're buying up Meg Energy, they bought up a chunk of Cenovus. I mean, these are some of our larger heavy oil players in northern Alberta. PetroChina is actually operating, as its own and buying up assets as PetroChina. Sinopec. I mean, all these Chinese companies are coming in and gobbling up the Alberta oil field because Carney and the Liberals have intentionally made the Alberta oil field so unattractive from an investment perspective. The only entity that's interested in buying assets in Alberta is China.
He's lying.
Because you know what they don't tell you, or he doesn't tell you?
Yeah.
The data center that Synapse want to bring in Alberta, by the way, will basically siphon on the natural resources of Alberta. But need not to talk about that for sure.
He's full of gas, that guy. Okay. He's lying by telling the truth. What do I mean? There's truth in what he said, but he's lying because he makes it sound like China is taking over Alberta oil because of the Liberal government. Isn't that the impression he left?
Yep.
Would you agree? Yeah. Oh my God, China's taking over everything out in Alberta. They're taking over the oil fields. They're gobbling everything up. His word, gobbling. Not true. China did come in and they were making acquisitions in terms of Alberta oil assets back, like 2010, 2009, I think. And it continued up until about 2013. And yes, they did buy Nexon. I remember that. And you can buy, Nexon tires. It's a growing Chinese company, right? Now. But the thing is, Ian, China doesn't own the majority, not even close, of Alberta Oil's assets. They have about 5%. And guess who owns the majority of which foreign country is the largest foreign investor in Alberta Oil?
US.
Yeah. They own well over 50%, sometimes approaching 60%. It goes up and down based on, shareholder percentages and stuff. But yeah, the US is the big player out there. China, 5% versus like 50 to 60% on the US side. He's lying. He's making a big ado of all of that. I'll tell you the other reason they can't attract investment out there beyond US dollars, because it's unstable, because you have separatists who are constantly causing trouble. These guys are the same troublemakers who have been causing all kinds of trouble across the country from one issue to another to another. And if it hadn't been for them, I'll tell you right now, I've come to the conclusion that if they weren't causing all kinds of trouble all the time, we wouldn't be facing half the restrictions as Canadians that we have been. You want to get locked down? You want more laws? You want more regulations imposed on you? You want more censorship? You just invite more foreign interference through a bunch of political activists who, in my view, are working for a very corrupt cause. Not that I have anything against the United States. I don't. And I welcome foreign investment because it helps capitalize the expansion of projects that the entire country can benefit from. But any foreign company and any foreign-owned company that comes into Alberta, any private company, that's who realizes the bulk of the profits from any kind of an oil project. It isn't the government per se, and it certainly isn't the citizens. The citizens get jobs. The big corporations get the profits. So get that through your head. And these separatists are telling everybody that all we have to do is separate from Canada and we'll keep all the money for ourselves. No, you won't. The corporations will get even more, because do you know what happens? Then they'll become exempt from federal taxation. They won't have to pay taxes to Ottawa anymore. That's why they want to separate. The big corporations don't want to pay their taxes. The big US oil companies. You get rid of that. Not only that, if you separate, they'll never get that other pipeline built to China, because the American oil companies don't want it going to China. They want to keep all that oil flowing south to the United States. China represents competition. And if they can limit the competition by rigging the market, by taking it over, so be it. You're never going to get a pipeline built to the West Coast. And Jeffrey Rath doesn't want one built. Never did. He's a big whiner, a complainer, a great big giant crybaby, and it's all fake. Fake grievance, fake problem. He is the goddamn problem. They're all the problem out there. They never wanted that pipeline built to the West Coast, because if it's not the corporate interests that have people motivated, it's the paranoia of China. where they're being told that China's gobbling everything up, and yet China only owns, or has invested is the proper term, 5%. Now, China is buying all of that oil pretty much that's coming out of the pipeline that goes to the West Coast currently, that a lot of people don't even know exists, but it does. Yeah, they're buying all that oil, but that's them as a customer, not as a controlling interest in it. There's a big difference. They don't own it. They don't own it till they buy the end product, which is the crude oil, which then gets shipped to the Asian market at world prices. And that's better for Alberta because now you have two customers. That creates more demand for your product, which means higher prices, which means you can charge the same kind of price that everybody else around the world does. But if you've got one customer, the United States of America only, then you have one place to sell it. You become a price taker. You can't demand a fair price at current market rates. That's not free market capitalism. That's not freedom at all.
No, that becomes a corporate fascism.
It's a controlled market. It becomes a barrier to entry to the industry is what that is. That's what's going on out there. These big companies with Donald Trump at the helm and helping them because they have, this corporate government, public, private partnership on hyperdrive with the tariff war and the trade war between the two countries and all of these issues. Okay. They're working hand in glove. That's why Trump goes to China, sits at the negotiating table with the Chinese, and he takes all of these corporate CEOs with him. What does that tell you about the state of America today? That wasn't Donald Trump over in China representing the people, and he didn't have, just the government representing the people of the United States at that table. No, he's got all his oligarch friends there, all the great, the super wealthy, ultra billionaires who are with all of the biggest corporations, the tech companies, big pharma, big oil, all of these companies over there sitting at the table on an equal footing with the president of the United States. Who elected them? Mm-hmm. They're not elected officials, yet they're there negotiating on behalf of America. Now, they could have input, but I don't know that it's even appropriate. I'd say it's a conflict of interest to have these guys sitting at that table negotiating alongside the president of the United States, because it gives them an unfair advantage in the marketplace versus any of the companies that try to compete with them.
Yeah, but in a corporatocracy, you don't have conflict of interest. You just have...
The whole thing is a conflict of interest. That's the whole point.
You just have give and done. All what you get is gift and support from what you have, and basically it's not free trade anymore.
It's a joke. It's a centrally planned, controlled economy. It's just you have the interaction between the private corporations and government. They work together, and then they create barriers to entry. Donald Trump protects them. They pay him by financing his campaigns, helping him build a big multi-billion-dollar ballroom, all these payoffs. And then he puts tariffs in place to protect them from foreign competition. He'll even take over a country for you if you line his pockets enough. You see, the whole thing is corrupt. That's why this kind of governance is authoritarian. It doesn't serve the people. It only serves a handful of people at the top. And while you're being told, gotta fight these taxes, we need smaller government. No, this is actually, you're voting for bigger government. It's just that it's so big, you don't count. The bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. And you're being told, yeah, we need lower taxes and less government, but it ain't for you and it ain't for me. It's for Exxon. It's for Elon Musk. It's for Mark Zuckerberg. It's for those guys. That's who it's for. Are you cluing in? That's why they get a seat at the table over in China, and you're lucky to get a seat at the dinner table.
That's exactly what it is, and that proves that America has become a corporatocracy. Because if you look at what a corporatocracy is in the spectrum of science politics, if I can put it this way. It's like the contrary of communism, because communism, you got basically it's the government who control the company and control the fair trade and whatnot, right? Where in corporatocracy, you have basically the company are your government. So, and in what I would also suggest, that is a corporato technocracy kind of hybrid kind of thing, is that like the same lobbying that you had in the 50s with the cigarette that is good for you if you smoke a Camel and blah 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 and so on. Well, it's the same way that you get people who's telling you we need to build something there, or that building is going to be safe for environment and whatnot, and you have no say in there because the expert tell you, and we got the lobbyists to back up.
Somebody sent me a video today of Glenn Beck going on about the new Spielberg movie, saying that it's the end of human free will, I think is what the idea was, because of propaganda and the way government uses popular culture, movies, and so on to control your mind, right? And as I'm watching this guy, I've come to the conclusion a while ago with Glenn Beck that he's part of the program, man. He's one of the people who's out to control your mind. Like, he's part of it. Well, he's telling you he's not part of it. Like, he's warning you, but he's part of it. Like, he definitely is. Which brings me back to TP USA, Turning Point USA, and that promo video, which is quite lengthy, very well produced, but they lie their asses off. Charlie Kirk, God bless his soul, lied like a rug.
Canada's a really screwed up country, and it's a self-hating country, as you well know, that prides itself on being polite. And this is a great lesson for those of us in the West. Your favorable characteristics of being polite, nice, and welcoming can also be your downfall. And you know that in Canada, right? Yeah. Super polite. Okay, we're just going to allow a bunch of foreigners over on our country. Super polite. We're not going to allow anyone. We're not going to have free speech. Canada's got a big problem. It does not have this, the Constitution. So you do not have robust free speech protections.
Lie. Huge lie. He's a liar. Ian, what am I holding up?
It's a constitution.
That would be right. That's the Constitution. You know where you can get this? Any bookstore, practically. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it online. You can look it up on the internet. It's not hard to find, but they keep telling you this doesn't exist because these people want to destroy our country. They're trying to convince everybody that Canada doesn't exist, that this book, this Constitution doesn't exist. Oh, no, it's in there. I can feel it. Yeah, it's still in my brain. I've read it. Okay, it's in there. Charlie, wherever you are up there, my friend, it's right here, pal. Maybe, like, I'm just telling you, it's real. He lies. He lies. They all lie. They've all been lying. They're lying about our country. They're lying about the Chinese influence. They're lying about the fentanyl. Donald Trump lies. If he opens his mouth, he lies. Then he lies on his lies, and the people believe it because they're all suffering from TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. They're all freaking brainwashed, and they're in a goddamn cult. I'm sorry, but that's what it's come down to. I hate to tell you that, but all the people who keep pointing at me saying he's got TDS, because you don't have an argument, you don't have anything valid to say, you run out of valid things to say, then you say, I have TDS, you have TDS, because this book proves it, you have been duped. How about that?
Yep. And I hate to say that, but to me, TDS sounds to me like someone's calling another one retard. I mean...
Yes, that's right. I don't mean to say that they're a bunch of retards. I'm saying wake the hell up. You're being lied to. And the people lying to you are the ones who have been saying, don't listen to them. They're all lying to you. Just ignore them. The reason they don't want you listening to other people, other organizations, other points of view is because then you'll figure out that they've been lying to you. They're lying, and then they're lying more. All they have been doing is lying. Now, when they show the burning churches, that actually happens. Okay, that's a problem. But I'll tell you this. Do you know one of the reasons they burn those churches it's not because it's not because of the liberal government. It's because of them. It's because of the extremist, the people who are far out there with their views. It's the religious extremists. It's the people who have oppressed the First Nations people over time. Okay. It's the Catholic Church. It's the anger over that. It's the Christians. They're mad at the Christians. They're mad at the very people. If you want to talk about why they burn churches, it's because they're upset. Well, they'll say it's the king or they say it's the crown, but really what it is it's the colonialism. But it is that they're upset that they had to go to residential schools. They're upset because they had to bend to the will of the Christians, right? And it's overlap. It's not just because of that, but of late, it's largely because of them, their ideology, their extreme politics, their bigotry in some cases, and then they get people that with all of their rhetoric, like we just heard, Canada's not a real country, doesn't have a constitution. You should hate it. You should hate this place. It's awful. And they get this into people's heads. No wonder people are burning things. You've got them all jacked up and angry. They're not thinking rationally. They're thinking with just their emotions. So they burn shit and we fight. And then people who don't listen to people anymore because they're telling everybody don't listen to them. And the other side is just as bad. They're saying, don't listen to those guys over there. We don't listen to each other. We don't talk to each other anymore. Now we're all fighting. They're burning churches. The other side wants to burn mosques. There's
so much
sick.
overlap. I see some overlap here. And there's some things I might go in a weird direction for you right now, but that's on one side, you got the accelerationist movement or the fringe radical that is part of it. And what do they listen to sometimes when you don't listen to them? And I'm gonna call out one or two of these, but mostly Diagolon. Okay, they are metal guys. They love metal music. I love metal music myself. I'm a metalhead. And if you look in Norwegia, what happened during the 90s, I think it was during the 93 in Norwegia, you had Dimo Borgir, singer, who was basically igniting churches around because it was a form of radicalization against the indoctrination of Christianism and the colonism through their culture that is, well, basically he was believing that they're from Vikings origins. So basically that was being torn down by Christianism. So you have an overlap, I think, in ideology here.
I love your accent. Christianism. That's pretty good. You mean Christianity?
Christianity.
That's good. Well, don't ask me to speak any French though, okay? Because you got me beat, man. Like, anyway, when I say that both sides are as bad as the other, like it's really become that because, like the kind of conservatism that I subscribe to, have always subscribed to, it doesn't exist anymore. Well, very little of it out there because people have been pushed to the extremes on both sides. So I highlight the fact, like, think of what happened during the pandemic, okay? That became very political, and that created a political divide. If you were on this side or that side, then this side would be vaccinated. I'd say more on the so-called liberal or woke side. I'll call it the progressive side, isn't it the more appropriate term these days? Not so much liberal, but progressive. And then on the other side, you have the, well, they call it conservatives, but it isn't. It's more like the populist nationalist, Christian nationalist side, cultural Christian nationalist side. Those were the people who didn't want to get vaccinated primarily. I didn't get vaccinated because I just have my own reasons, but I just felt it hadn't been tested enough. Still don't think it's been tested enough. But you remember they wanted to Well, they locked everybody down, even the healthy people, which was crazy. They masked everybody up, made that mandatory. And then, of course, they came out with the vaccine mandates, which people on the cultural Christian nationalist side, populist side, there are a lot of different flavors of this out there, this political ideology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Overlapping. But now this group out in Alberta, as I highlighted at the beginning of the program, they want to deport the vaccinated. They want to deport vaccinated people. So they have this immigration plan, and they have a point system, right? Now, they're not talking about people who are already there, okay? Or people who would become citizens, I guess. If you're born in Alberta and you got vaxxed, I guess you get to stay. But if you're any person who falls onto their list, all right, and you're an immigrant, in order to stay in Alberta, you have to meet a whole list of criteria. And there's a point system awarded. And if you are not injected, you get 10 points. If you haven't had an mRNA injection, that kind of a vaccine, if you haven't had an mRNA vaccine of any kind, you get 10 points. That helps you stay. If you don't have any serious illnesses like, I don't know, Ebola or something, then you get to stay. If you have been vaccinated, I guess that works against you. So they actually want to deport people who have been vaccinated. Now, you tell me, does that sound just as extreme to you as the other way around? Because it sure as hell does to me. I thought it was unfair. It was unconstitutional. You shouldn't be discriminating against people for medical choices. It should be private anyway. For me, it was always about freedom. It was always about choice. You want to get vaccinated? You want to take the chance? You want to absorb the risk involved with getting a vaccine that could have side effects that you maybe are not fully explored? You go right ahead. Who am I to say no? That's your choice. Go get shot up 20 times for all I care. It's your body, your choice. So too on the other side, right? If you don't want to get vaccinated, they shouldn't have tried to force people. And ultimately, I guess they didn't, but you paid a price, right? They used coercion. You can't get a job. You can't go into a restaurant. You can't go to a concert. Like a friend of mine the other day talked about being invited to a concert during the lockdowns, hadn't been vaccinated. So this person had to stand on the other side of a fence and look in. And I don't think they actually went to the concert because they couldn't bring themselves to go, because it was just, this whole scenario is horrific and unfair and gross. And of course, that's not right. You don't treat people like that. But I say you don't treat people the other way around either. You don't use that against people to kick them out of your country because they have chosen to take some sort of medical intervention that they've been told will not only protect them, but protect others, just because they were trying to do the right thing. Maybe they didn't. That's an issue for another discussion. But my God, Ian, what have we come to where both sides are so extreme that they're using it against people or plan to use it against people in this way? That's what's at the core. Like, this is right in the Alberta Prosperity Project plan. This is what they want to do. Yeah. Now, you tell me, is that not just as bad? I think it's maybe even worse.
I mean, can I say something harsh? Nazism was more gentle than that.
Blows my mind. I just
blows my mind.
I keep saying, like, people keep failing the test. And what do I mean? I mean, what you're talking about. It's like through your life and through history, human beings face tests. There are challenges placed in front of us. And then your character is tested. Your heart, right? What kind of person are you? Do you rise to the occasion, or do you become selfish because of your fear? How do you respond to things at a time of crisis? Do you reach out and help people? Do you take a stand, or do you comply? Do you do things because of it? You know what I'm saying? So and we keep failing the test as a society because we keep making, I think, the wrong choices. We're going to lock people down. That's right. And then on the next thing you know, on the front page of the Toronto Star, there's a headline, saying that a majority of people are in favor of putting the unvaccinated in concentration camps.
And
like,
I mean,
what?
That's the thing. Alberta was like the first region, I'm sure, and I'm not insulting anyone. I'm just saying that everyone in Alberta, I'm sure, was the first to be freaking out when the government was putting lockdowns during COVID, right?
Yeah.
And what are they doing first? Worse. But
Worse.
Like 10-fold.
Here's the list of all their criteria. You have to have an education. You need to speak English, right? Canadian citizenship. If you're a Canadian citizen, you get 40 points for that. If you're a lifelong Canadian without a criminal record, but you only get half that if you weren't born in Canada. Like, what? So, like, why does that even matter for Alberta citizenship? If you're a Canadian citizen, you get points, 40 points. If you're not born in Canada, though, you only get 20. It just goes on. It's ridiculous.
You know what? You're just gamified. You're bonifying to be in a country or to be born somewhere. So basically what you're doing, guys, is gamify where being part of a said region is a thing. And not only that, that's becoming a meritocracy.
Well, if you want to separate from Canada, why do you care if somebody's Canadian at all? If you want to decide if they're going to be an Alberta citizen, why does Canadian citizenship even factor into it? In fact, we've just been discussing that and saying that you might not even be able to retain your citizenship as a Canadian after they separate. But they want their cake and eat it too. They want everything that comes with Canadian citizenship, but they don't want to pay their taxes. Why don't they want to pay their taxes? Well, because it's really the big companies and the corporations driving this whole thing. One way or another, I'll guarantee you this, the citizens will pay their taxes, and you're not going to make any more profit from that oil. You're not going to make 1 penny more. You might get more jobs. I don't know if they expand the oil market, but that's the best you can hope for is more jobs. And one way or another, you're going to pay your taxes. And if you're not paying income tax, they're just going to charge you a different tax called something else. You're going to pay taxes. That's guaranteed in life.
I got another question then for that. Where are you going to deport those people?
That's a very good question. Where are they going? Well, they're going back where they came from. Well, I'm a Canuckistanian, so where are you going? I guess I'm going back to Ontario. I don't know. Each person would be dealt with in their own particular way. If you look at what goes on with this Restore Britain group, they don't really seem to care. It's just, you can't stay here. Just get the hell out of here. I've been reading their plan. It's got some things that raise my eyebrows over there too. We can maybe talk about that tonight a little bit. But this whole thing in Alberta, oh my God. I didn't know. I mean, I've been saying, let's keep the country together, but now I'm seeing, hey, wait a minute. These people are not about freedom. They're certainly not about democracy. They want what they want. They want to get the political opposition out of the way. They're not really talking about it in a way that makes it clear what their actual plan is. They've got this divided, separated political movement where they can kind of dodge bullets. They've got all these different separatist groups set up. So you don't really know who to punch in this fight, right? It's kind of like you're boxing with several different entities at the same time. They don't have a central figurehead other than this Mitch Sylvester and the lawyers who aren't really the leaders, although this Mitch Sylvester is being promoted as the probable president of whatever comes out of this. That's what a lot of people are saying. That's causing some infighting, I guess. Some of that I think is performative, but is that the guy that is going to be the president of the new Republic of Alberta? And will it actually be a democracy? I wouldn't say it's very democratic at all, because You're going to have like this small group of people who will be citizens because they were born there of the land, which seems very fascistic and honestly, well, prejudicial to me. And then the other people who live there, which I would say probably will comprise the majority of the people, probably, well, then they won't get to vote at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I say you weren't born in Alberta, but a lot of people who live in Alberta came from other provinces. I don't know what the demographic breakdown is. I don't know what the numbers are, but a large percentage, maybe even the majority of people wouldn't even get to vote. That isn't democracy.
Well, to me, it sounds more of a meritocracy, because you got to be.
It's not a meritocracy. It's the opposite of that. Meritocracy is, you get to do something because you've earned it, because you've gone to school and you have the credentials. You've worked in an industry. On top of that, you have job experience. You become very proficient at whatever it is you do.
Yeah, but
so
being born in Alberta is also part of it. It's part
but
of
that's
it.
not merit. That's prejudice. That's a birthright, is what you're talking about there. That's not merit. You didn't earn that. That was given to you. There's a big difference between a meritocracy and inheriting something because of a birthright.
Okay.
Right? Huge difference.
So
that's an entitlement.
Yeah, okay. So I'm
you owe it to me. This is the problem out there, man. This is the whole problem with these separatists. You owe it to me. That was the whole thing with the Andy Griffith episode that I ran last night. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. Give it to me. I don't have to work for it. I don't need to work for my allowance. You give it to me now. Give it, or I'm going to cry. Throw a temper tantrum. It's mine, 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 mine. I don't have to share anything. They're a bunch of, they're spoiled, rotten little brats.
They feel
not
entitled.
The people of Alberta. The people at the center of it, they want their cake, eat it too. They want the money. They're greedy. They're power hungry, and they're trying to purge their political opposition. This stinks.
Very dangerous, I think.
Extremely dangerous, because it could lead to violence. For what? For those guys?
For a fringe minority, may had.
And the people, if you're not gonna, it's not gonna make any difference to your income status. Not likely. Like I've done the comparisons down in Texas. Like there are pluses and minuses on both sides, but at the end of the day, the quality of life between people in Texas and Alberta, overall, you have a wider gap in income disparity, right? There's a lot. There are more rich people, but there are a lot more poor people. There's less in the middle. Overall, there's not a lot of difference in terms of quality of life. If you get sick down there, you're in a lot of trouble. You can lose everything you have. Not so in Canada. But you may not have as much money on this side, but you might have more over there. It's at the end of the day, man, it's the big companies and the government that take all the money, and they leave enough for the working people like you and I and the little folks to get by, and without causing an uprising and trying to overthrow the government. That's what goes on all the time. Not that, and that sounds very socialistic on my behalf, but I'm not a socialist per se. I am a conservative. I believe in a true free market, but that means also ensuring that people have access, equal opportunity, not equal outcome, equal opportunity to participate, right? And it means that you don't have complete domination of things so that a handful of people get all the cash. And then
because this is what democracy is. Democracy is what it is. It's equal for everyone, and everyone should have a say. And like you said, you should have also your cards in the game. So equally.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like Bernie Sanders, there I go, right? But no, that's not what I'm about. And but these are nuanced things. Some of the concepts difficult to understand, and I'm like a classic conservative, or some would say a classical liberal, but when you use that term liberal, no, that just means classical freedom. Classical, and that's what like a real conservative is. That's to preserve things that are good, fix things that need fixing. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. When you figure out something, you improve upon it over time, fix things as you go along, conserve all that is good, and move forward, making things better.
That's it.
And you put individualism and individual rights, freedoms, liberty at the forefront, because the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen, right? But that's not what is going on today. On the left side, the progressive side, the Trudeau ideology, that is not classical liberalism. That is progressivism, aka wokeism. That's cultural. Some would say cultural Marxism. I've used that phrase myself. I'm not sure that accurately describes what it is. It is progressivism that has gone extreme.
Acceleration, I think. There's a bit of accelerationism in there.
That you could say that, but that's a term that's really applied more on the right wing of the spectrum, if you want to look at it on that scale, right? Or on that spectrum. But on the other side, that's not conservatism. Like on the right side today, it's not conservatism. It's this communo-fascistic combination of communism and fascism. It's mostly fascistic, and it's described in some cases as populist. But I would say that the populist movement that existed even a few years ago when the PPC was created in Canada, at that time, I would say that party was much more moderate at the beginning. But even though they say that they stick to their values and principles and they don't compromise and look at polls, they do. They look at what goes on social media. They're reading the room, if you will, always taking the lay of the land, figuring out what things are. And they're seeing that globally, the progressive the populist movement has been pushing further and further and further over to the fringe and becoming more extreme, going harder on issues like immigration, and they're following that trail. And you can see the progression even within the PPC with the party platform. If you go back, 5, 6, 7 years, how many years ago now? I think it was 2019 was it 2019 when the party was created? Anyway, yeah. So you're seeing it here in Canada as well. But everything's getting polarized. What's in the center, which is kind of where I am, everybody's been leaving me. The Conservative Party leaves. PPC's right there. I'm like, okay, then they're there, and then they're gone. They've gone over there. The liberal side, they've kind of come a little further to the center with Carney, but they're still over there. They're still not my thing, right? But I like some of the economic stuff, but I don't really like some of the culture stuff. There's still too much wokeism, too much, progressivism for me. But I'm tolerant, so I'm like, do your thing, man. Like, do whatever you want. I'm just not into the drag queen story time stuff. I'm not inclined to attend, but have at it if you want to go to a drag show or whatever with your police and you want to. I don't care. Like, honestly, some of it gets a little off the charts for me, but and I don't like seeing naked people walking down the street in the middle of my town. But at the same time, I see the hypocrisy in it all, because the very people who complain about it run off to Mardi Gras. And they participate in what's really kind of a Christian tradition where it's nothing but debauchery and nudity and women taking beads to show you their breasts and heavy drinking. And then they go to Lent. Like, that's all. I'm saved. I confess, I did it. I sinned.
Reminds me of what I said long time ago about what was happening during the time of Marilyn Manson in the baptism era of that time. His grandfather actually was pure Christian baptism, but at the end of the night, he was in the drag queen stories.
But that is America. It is a country of hypocrisy. The whole country is like that. On the one side, you've got this Christian revival happening, but then they all run home and they watch, porn on the internet, and then their daughters grow up and go out to LA to do OnlyFans videos. It's like, and then they elect a president who has porn stars as mistresses, and then throws parties with scantily clad women in giant, huge representations of champagne glasses, Vegas style, at Mar-a-Lago, while they talk about Christian values. It's just like, what the hell is this clown show? It's America.
Actually, new Christian values is, you can have an open relationship, right?
Yeah.
If everyone is in the right path, and if everything is done well, you can be open-minded and be swing around with the other partners. So, that's the new conservative Christian of today. Where back in my days, or when I was a kid, I was told that no, you should have just one partner and that's all you get.
Yeah, and then all these reports at these Turning Point USA events, a lot of people now are kind of shifting away from it, and they're blowing the whistle sort of right on what's been the real things that have been going on behind the scenes: the drugs, the sex, the rock and roll. Yeah, not quite so pure as we were led to believe, right? The hypocrisy, it just smacks. But hey, they know better, and apparently Canada's just this big oppressive communist dictatorship, so they need to come up and liberate us. Thank you, Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson. I don't think so. This is why these guys have been, losing me. Like, I'm going to leave. They've left. They've all gone over there doing these crazy, wacky videos that are misrepresentations and misleading. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. Look, I've been torn all my life to be, to act certain way, to behave certain way. That now I have to change all that because the mentality of the people goes, nah, I'm old school. I'm going to stay old school, and don't touch my prides or don't touch my values of old times. That's what I live on.
Speaking of values, okay, this Mitch Sylvester misrepresents things, lies. They're all lying out there. Here he is at a presentation, and this is a very common one, okay, where they talk about Trudeau and the post-national state. First of all, let's just listen to this short clip.
This is in 2015. This is 10 years ago. They've been on this path for 10 years. And how do they do it? Well, there's a playbook. There's actually a path, a clear path. And here's the first thing.
Okay, actually, I better re-rack that a little bit because I think oh, hang on. We're going to go to a commercial here, right? He's talking about the post-national state thing, which is misrepresented constantly. They're saying that Canada doesn't exist, but it does. And I'll explain what is meant by post-national. Hang on, here we go. It's not going to let me. It's not letting me click.
That's my fault.
Let me take a little break because everything just kind of went haywire on me here. Hang on, we'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, here's the clip of Mr. Sylvester talking about Trudeau.
And if that's not bad enough, they're going to bring Chinese communist recruits to defend Canada, 15,000 of them. So guess who's going to come and get your guns? I don't know that. I'm just asking you. So how far down the line are we, and how far down the line do we want to go, is my question. So I'm going to walk you through step by step how we got here now, because this is not new. This actually started with Pierre Elliott Trudeau when he wrote the Constitution. This started...
Constitution. I thought that we didn't have one, but he just acknowledged that we do. Well, at least he was truthful about that. He didn't write it alone, by the way.
Pierre Elliott Trudeau, may come as a surprise to everybody, was a hardcore Marxist, communist. He was prime minister here for a long time, and he's still ruling us from the grave.
No, he's not. And he wasn't a hardcore Marxist communist. I believe when he was young, he was a member of a communist or Marxist party, but no, he was a liberal socialist. He was a socialist, not a hardcore communist.
He's got judges actually passing laws on precedent that are actually, they're making the laws instead of our parliamentarians now. So I got to share with you a very interesting story from our court case. Justice Feasby, who was trying the case against us, and it was against us, very obvious from the beginning, said something that I found very interesting. He said this, quote, "There are questions that the people should not be allowed to ask." How do you feel about that? He said it twice. There are questions that people should not be allowed to ask. So he was very, very upset when Danielle came out with Bill 14 and shut him down. And the reason he was upset is because he couldn't make the rule and set the rules so that for the rest of us, so it would shut us down, and we wouldn't be able to ask a question, should we be independent of these bad people in Ottawa? That was where he was. Could you imagine, you peons, having the ability to ask a question like that?
I was quite certain that that's not being represented properly. I think what the judge is likely getting at there is that you have to ask questions in a particular way when you're going to a referendum. I'd have to look more into what the Feasby ruling was, but I'm certain that he's misrepresenting.
We should be allowed to rule you. Doesn't that say all of that?
No.
An appointed liberal bureaucrat is telling the people of Alberta that they shouldn't be allowed to ask a democratic question and have a referendum on anything.
He didn't say that.
Mr. Trudeau said there's no core identity, no mainstream in Canada, and consequently, that makes us the first post-national state, New World Order.
He didn't say New World Order.
Globalism, post-national, no nation. Canada ceases to exist. Post-national, no nation. That's what that means.
That's not what it means. That's a complete misrepresentation. That's not what it means at all. You might think that's what it means because on its face, it seems to mean that. That's not what it means. Post-nationalism is to say that the citizens of a post-national state are bound together, not by their blood, not by their genetics, not by the color of their skin, not because of where they were born, but by a shared set of values, interests, taking care of each other. Even the founding of the country, I would say, well, I don't agree with Trudeau's view on post-nationalism. I believe more in the traditional value set that established this country, a value set that was based on, and the country still continues to thrive on, values centered around individualism, individual rights, freedoms, and liberty. Those are the foundational principles upon which Canada was formed. And in the Constitution, there is reference to the supremacy of God in order to protect people's rights. So those are the concepts that I still subscribe to. They've taken it beyond that, and they view Canada not as not a nation, quite the opposite. They're saying that, and I do to some degree agree with this, you don't have to be born here to become a citizen. You don't have to be white like me. You don't have to be from England or Scotland or Ireland or any other particular country. You don't have to be from France. You know, your ancestors don't have to be from France. That's not what binds us together. It's something more than that. It is values, as Mark Carney might say, although that's not really what he's referencing in his book. So value and values are words that can have various meanings, as many words can have different meanings, but we're still a nation state. He's saying that we are bound together by a belief in the rule of law, in democracy, in taking care of each other in times of strife. So if there's a dust bowl and farmers are going bankrupt out in Alberta in the 1930s, the rest of the country steps up, and like we did, we provide assistance and change things to help them get through the tough times. We pull together, that we believe in those kinds of ideas. To some people, that might be socialism. To other people, that might just be caring for a neighbor. How far do you go with socialism? Those are the other issues. But it's not socialism so much that's at the core of it even. Okay, it's not like that. But he's saying that Canada, again, doesn't exist because they say it's a post-national state, like we're not a nation. No, we're post-national, which is to say that we're a country that isn't bound together just because a bunch of people were born in one place. We're saying that we are a nation, whether we like it or not, that is pluralistic. We have First Nations peoples. We have people from China. We have people from Iowa. We have people from France, England, all over the world.
Actually, that's the thing. We share a core value of cultural. It's a cultural value that we kind of share. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. We all share the fact that once you come in Canada, you kind of takes our cultural memes, if you will, and I mean, you just do a better life, right? Because we're just liberal, so that's how it works.
A friend of mine sent me video of this gentleman. His name is Norval Morisseau, just in the last few days, just coincidentally, and it ties in sort of to what we're talking about here. My friend said, this artist is uniquely Canadian. Norval Morisseau was given the award of the Order of Canada. Okay. Now, he rose to prominence in like the 60s and 70s. He's a First Nations Indigenous artist. He kind of broke through, he broke a lot of taboos by sharing with everyone Indigenous art in ways that had never been shared before. And I'm sure you've heard of Canada's Group of Seven. This artist was part of the Indigenous Group of Seven. He, I believe he's the only one of the Indigenous Group of Seven who had a solo exhibition. I think it was at the National Art Gallery. And, you know, very smart. He also was famous because he did this big mural back at Expo 67. And so my friend said, this artist is uniquely Canadian. And as I was thinking about this broadcast tonight, here's some of his work, I was thinking, no, like, yes, but no. He was uniquely Norval Morisseau. He was unique because he was Norval Morisseau. And because he was unique, and because his work was unique, I guess he was uniquely Canadian. But that's what Canada, for me anyway, has always been about. It's about individuals, and it is about being able to express yourself as an individual. And so we have this inclination as human beings to group people together. But when you do that, you kind of, especially when it comes to art and artistic expression, I think it's not really, it's okay to say you recognize a particular style, but especially in art, I think you need to recognize the individual. That's what is great about Canada too. It's that each individual is celebrated, individual rights. I think that's where Justin Trudeau kept missing the mark. That's why I say he ended up being the worst prime minister in Canadian history. He doesn't choose his words carefully enough. When he used phrases like post-national state, failed to explain what that really meant to people because it's a complex idea. It was just ripe for the picking for political opponents and separatists who have taken it out of context and misrepresented what that political ideology or an offshoot of progressivism really means. And so it's been used against him and against the country. It's been weaponized in a way that screws with people's minds. Norval Morrisseau, unique because he's Norval Morrisseau, just happened to be in Canada, but also not just Canadian, Indigenous. You know, they're the group of 7, not Indigenous, but also each one unique. Also kind of a similar style. They all shared a similar style, but you celebrate each of the individual artists first. The individual first. Even in, not so much in America, not so much in Alberta under these separatists. In America, it's a melting pot. It's a cultural melting pot. You're putting all the people in together, and they're just saying it's a big stew, but everything becomes homogenous. It's you got to speak English. We don't like Spanish, even though we've got this huge Spanish-speaking population. We don't respect it. We mock it, as you've seen the conservative influencers doing after the Super Bowl, after Bad Bunny's performance and all of that crap, right? You don't get that in Canada. We respect and celebrate Quebec. But I don't celebrate you as a Frenchman. I celebrate you as you, Ian, because you're an individual. That's what Canada, my Canada, is all about. I don't know about other people. Doesn't seem to be anywhere near the core of what these separatists out in Alberta believe. They're collectivists. They're isolationists. They're extremists. If you're not like me, you got to go. You don't speak my language. You don't think like me. You don't believe like me.
Very true.
You weren't born here. You don't get the same rights as me. You don't even get to vote like me. You don't get a voice. I'm going to dictate to you. And they're complaining all the time that they don't get a voice because Ottawa dictates to them. They want it. They're the ones who want to dictate. They want their little group to have all the power, and all the other people that they don't like, they're going to decide who gets to vote, who gets citizenship, who might get an Alberta passport, who doesn't. And they're going to decide if you even get to stay. They're going to get to decide if you even get to work. And as they kind of look at who is even eligible to work in the province, as I read their plan, they're going to do that retroactively. They're going to start to review work permits in reverse to determine, based on their point system, if you are even allowed to work, even if you have status in Canada to work out there. Not if you're... It is extreme. In my view, it's extreme because they're focused so much on the immigration, which they kind of downplay in their talk, but in their plan, it's a prominent point.
My question to them with that is, if I would be Albertan or not, and I'd be living in Alberta, I'm vaccinated in my thing, or in my hypothetical history here. Do I have a right to work somewhere because I'm vaccinated with the COVID vaccine or whatever. I mean, that could, bring a lot of issues for them. I don't know. That's, I mean,
let me just continue with his clip here. Where did we go? I have to find Mr. Sylvester again. I thought he was right there. Not that one. Here it is.
This is in 2015. This is 10 years ago. They've been on this path for 10 years. And how do they do it? Well, there's a playbook. There's actually a path, a clear path. And here's the first thing. Control the message. In 1954, there was a statute in the Criminal Code of Canada that said it was illegal to lie to the public. So in 2019, what did they do? They changed the rules so they could lie to you. They passed Bill C-39. So why would the government want to lie to you, is my question. Because before that, before 2019, people were not allowed to lie to you. The government was not allowed to lie to you. And a post-national state means, of course, global government away from here.
They're lying. He's lying. He's misrepresenting. He's lying. He's telling the truth, but he's lying by telling the truth. That, you see, that bill, the change in the law, it was based on a, I don't know if you probably don't remember. It was a long time ago. There was a court case. I remember the whole schmozzle. It was Ernst Zundel, Holocaust denier. Went out, he was printing these pamphlets about Holocaust denial. He was handing them out, right? Distributing this literature. So that's media. He was charged because he's promoting Nazism and fascism and Holocaust denial. He was found guilty, was sentenced, but then upon appeal, there was a lengthy court case, high profile at the time. There were debates that took place at the time too. Ernst Zundel, very controversial figure, obviously. But his court challenge was successful insofar as the law that was used to convict him, which is the statute that, or the piece of legislation that's being highlighted there, which made it illegal for the media, not the government, for the media to lie to you. It was a rarely ever used piece of legislation, certainly in modern times. And I have to rack my brain to remember some of this stuff. That it was struck down by the courts as being unconstitutional because it was a violation of your freedom of expression, your right to free speech, and it didn't pass what's called the Oakes test, which is a test that's applied by the courts to determine if something is constitutional and violates exactly that, your freedom of speech. And so it's because Canada honors the rule of law, it's because the courts were protecting freedom of speech that they struck that law down. The law that said it's illegal for the media to lie. And so even it wasn't that the court was saying that Ernst Zundel was right. It didn't endorse what he was saying, but they were saying, yes, you have the right to say it. And so they were saying you have freedom, but there are still other laws in place which protect the public from injurious speech, things like libel, slander, all kinds of other laws that govern media and even government, what you're allowed to say and not say in media. So there are still laws and protections in place, but it was determined that the wording of that particular law, as it applied to Ernst Zundel, was too broad. It was unconstitutional. It took people's rights to free speech away. So it was struck down. If they'd left it in place, somebody like Mitch Sylvester would just come along, flip it upside down and say, you see how oppressive they are? They have a law that prohibits your freedom of expression. It's a censorious dictatorship where they don't let you say what you want to say. They're censors. This is a censorship law. They're dictators. You strike it down, and he takes the opposite effect, and he says, now they can say whatever they want. They can lie to you. So it doesn't matter what is done. That guy's going to misrepresent it and twist it into something that it really isn't accurate in order to get you angry, because that's their playbook. That's what that guy's doing. That's what Mitch Sylvester is all about. That's what these separatists are about. And it turns my stomach.
Yeah, because you know what's crazy? That law could have resulted into giving him some, well, accountability for the lies that he's doing in a certain way. So
pretty slick though, isn't it? Because it's a mind screw, right? A mind F. He's screwing with you. He's manipulating you. He's duping you. He's a lizard with a forked tongue, a serpent, a typical politician speaking out of both sides of his mouth with a forked tongue coming out. Lie, lie, lie. A lie here and a lie there and a little bit of truth injected to confuse the hell out of you and mislead, misrepresent. I'm tired of these guys, and it's all over the place is what they do. But in this particular case, the stakes are high. This is not just an election. This is about the future of our country, where everybody does have a say, with all of its flaws, all of its warts, all of its pockmarks, all of its problems. It's still, in my view, the best damn thing going. And we need to preserve it, protect it, move forward with it, make it better every single day, because it has been not just decades, not even centuries, but thousands of years in the making, because our entire system is based on legal concepts, philosophy dating back that far, Magna Carta, and prior to that, everything. John Locke, Adam Smith, father of modern economics, all of these concepts, they're in the process of dismantling it, attacking it, chipping away at it, blowing holes in it with their falsehoods, their shenanigans, their misbehavior. They're causing the problems while saying it's because the system is broken and flawed. They're the ones cutting the roots, throwing on the acid, setting the flames. They're the ones causing the problems, Ian. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, they say that it's, us or the government or the ideology. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it doesn't help when you've got an arsonist throwing gasoline on it and lighting a match either, because the next thing you know, you've got a church burning down.
Very true. And I will say that I think this has been going along for a long time now, and we need to, come down a little bit, because all that is going to get everyone crazy in the country, and that's where it's getting dangerous. And not only that, but like you said, it's all an affair now of the country. It's not just one region, it's national. It's to that point now. So
it's gone global. And if you want to hang in there, we can take a look at this on a global scale, take a little break, come back to you if you want to do that.
Sure.
All right,
why not?
Hang on. Because some people's heads might blow up. Shut up! Shut that guy up! Censor him! Yeah, there's lots of people out there. Shut him down. Okay, let's take a little we'll just have a little intermission break. People can go get more popcorn, a beverage, use the facilities, do whatever you need to do, and we'll return on the other side of this.
They both look clean, but the guest list redacted, if you know what I mean. We can't release the names to protect the victims. And also Donald Trump. Coincidence? Just dumb luck. Right? Another sealed file. That crocodile smile. We did our best, says the DOJ, while the truth just fades away. Another new spin. No one will win except the rich guys with gold ID cards and closets full of secrets behind steel bars. Just a little glitch. A billionaire's privilege. That's the sound of the case. Closed.
All right, let's bring him back in. Howdy.
Howdy.
We're back.
Howdy ho.
So, as we're going through a lot of this, thinking about something else a friend of mine sent me recently over the last few days. Have you been following this by-election in Britain?
Not really, actually.
Okay. So, this is by-election. I think it's Makerville. I want to make sure I get it right. It's kind of a two-way race with the more established parties at this point. But it's by-election in the UK, special election to fill this vacant seat. We have them here too, right? If an MP steps aside during their time in office. So there's this campaign going on. I don't think the vote is actually until later in June, maybe around the 18th or so. And it is in Makerfield, because this MP, Labour MP, Josh Simons, resigned his seat, creating a way for this Andy Burnham, who's a popular mayor of Greater Manchester, to come into Parliament. And it's tied to Labour's internal leadership crisis. A lot of British politics that, I'm sure that people here in Canada and the US are not really that familiar with. But what's been highlighted because of all of this is the sort of the rise of the right, and the issues that have been driving that, immigration being one. And as a result of that, they're talking a lot about, the grooming gangs. And you saw the big Tommy Robinson rally, right? And it's that end of the political spectrum that has been largely on display here, even though, let me just see, I think there are some polls that are out that show it's still Labour and I believe Reform. That's the Nigel Farage group. I think Labour's leading and Reform it's like 48, 42%. It's pretty close. But there's this other party now that has split off from Reform. It's called Restore Britain. So somebody's been sending me information and just highlighting this stuff. It ties into what we've been talking about. And it shows that this is it's a global political movement, this populist movement, right? Restore Britain happening because the people involved, and it seems to be rising in popularity pretty quickly because they're frustrated with especially immigration, seeing that as sort of the primary issue the driving issue. They're getting a lot of traction with it online. You have some of their most prominent figures. Frank Wright is the one guy who's somebody's been sending me videos of this guy, and the Rupert Lowe is the party leader. So he, of course, is getting a lot of play. Let me just see if I've got. No, I don't want that one. I need. Oh, I have to get it over here. Here it is here. I haven't even listened to this clip. I wasn't sure we were going here tonight. So I do have some material that I've been working on getting together. I'm going to blow your mind, by the way, with what I'm going to show you. Make you scratch your head by the time you're done. So, yes. Here's Rupert Lowe. Let's just play this clip. This is him talking about immigration and his deportation plan. And you see a lot of talk like this even here on the Canadian home front, right? Remigration, I would say remigration. Everybody's pronouncing it remigration. I'm like, remigration? It would be remigration, like reversed migration, remigration. I think everybody's mispronouncing it, but what do I know? I have a Canusa accent living so close to the Windsor-Detroit border. Nevertheless, here's Rupert Lowe in an interview.
I would detain and I would deport. Anyone arriving illegally, detain and deport. Anyone living here illegally, detain and deport. Anyone in any criminals in our prisons who are foreign nationals, deport. Families of those people where a rapist is raping white, underage, English, working class girls who've been groomed, if that family knew that that person was perpetrating that evil on those vulnerable young girls, if they were foreign nationals or dual nationals, I would deport them. I have never said whole communities of British passport holders should be deported. What I have said is once we've done those things I've just outlined, we do need to start looking at those people who are on welfare, who've come here, who aren't contributing to our society, who don't speak English, and who effectively are going to be a burden to the taxpayer for the foreseeable future. And we should encourage them to leave.
I've heard that somewhere before, but in another language, but similar, probably around the 1930s.
So this party, like, how do you feel? Like, I get it. Like, a lot of people are worried about things, right? Like wokeism, progressivism, the authoritarianism. They're worried about government overreach. They're worried about digital IDs, the use of artificial intelligence. They're worried about facial recognition technology and the progression of all of those kinds of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. So somebody had been sending me this stuff thinking that this is the answer. These guys, they're the answer. No, they're not. They're not at all. They're false prophets. They're not what they would have you believe they are. They're not about freedom. They are not. I understand the immigration issue and I understand the culture shock. I understand why people are upset. Hey, when I went to the walk-in clinic yesterday, all the people in there had heavy accents. They were, I didn't ask what country are you from. I didn't really care, but it's culture shock because I have to get used to the accent to understand, but it is English and everything's cool. Okay. But, it is something you have to get used to when you're like, everybody there was from that local community within the community. And there's more of it going on. There's no question about it. In my view, we've just let too many people in too quickly. We've got too much shock, too much of a culture shock here in Canada. As a result, you're getting pushback. And it's having negative economic impacts in terms of rising housing prices and other shocks, economic shocks that we're going to have to deal with. We'll get through it, but it's a challenge. That's again why I don't agree with Justin Trudeau. Diversity isn't our strength necessarily. It's more of a challenge. It's something we have to deal with, cope with, learn to live with, and temper. And these are my views, right? Because I don't think it's been handled properly. But how you deal with the problems that have been created to this point is also important. It's not just like, in my view, you don't just go around rounding people up, shipping them all out, don't care where they go. It's how you treat people along the way. It's about preserving people's rights along the way. These guys, I'm telling you right now, a lot of people are hitching their wagon to this star. Yeah, you do so at your own peril, because history shows that this kind of rhetoric, Ian, you highlighted it. You just touched on it, man. This is another test. This is another test right here. And I fear some people with the best of intentions, unwittingly, are failing the test because they're taking the bait from people who are not really being, now I'm not going to use the word truthful, but they're not being honest with folks, okay? Here's this other guy. I have watched, it's got to be four, maybe 5 hours of this guy's interviews over the past week. He's another Restore Party candidate. He's also a Christian Catholic podcaster, influencer, works for does a lot of stuff for, I think it's a life stream, or I can't remember the name of the online media outlet, but it's a Christian right-wing, I'd say even sometimes conspiracy-laden media outlet. Sounds like he makes a lot of sense, but I'll tell you this, Ian. He's just a classic politician to me. He's a blowhard. In the probably 5 hours of listening to this guy yak, all I've heard is complaining. He just has a list of grievances, just like the Separatists out in Alberta. It's typical playbook. All he does is whine and complain. Everything's awful. The world is coming to an end. We're going bankrupt. Our children are being raped. Our society's falling apart. If we don't do something immediately, it's the end of the world. It's all exaggerated to the nth degree. It's just like Donald Trump. It's always the worst of this or the absolute best of that. But with this guy, it's nothing but the worst. This guy, in the past, I don't really want to ever listen to him. I don't want to listen to him anymore. He's depressing, but more than that, he gets people angry. And that's why people follow him, because especially with media, that's what people click on. That's what generates views. That's what he's going for. And this, and people who follow this, people who hitch their wagon to this star, I'm telling you, huge mistake. History will judge.
Morally fall so far. And I've heard people often early 20th century, only mid 20th century, by T.S. Eliot, called Notes Towards the Definition of Culture, where he attempted a very difficult project of trying to define what a culture is. And he was good at it. But in it, he said this one thing. He said, in my life, I've seen the standards of our culture intellectually and morally fall so far. And I've heard people often remark, he said something like this, that, oh, surely it can't go further, as if it's just going to hit some bottom. But Eliot made a very important point. He said it's not going to bottom out. There is no bottom. There is no limit to how far down man can fall if he doesn't choose to stop it himself. And we have that feeling of free fall building in the population now. And we know that if we don't stop falling, we'll disappear.
What did you see on the streets of Makerfield when you spoke to people? Genuinely, like,
no hope.
the mixture of people you spoke to.
Well, to be honest, I was surprised, given how febrile life can be, that people didn't come out howling at us and so on. You know, one or two people were unwilling to tell you who you'd vote for because, you know, that's what you do. You say, hello, you know, have you heard about us? Are you going to, do you know there's an election on? And have you thought about voting for anyone? Would you mind telling us who it is? And it's like, well, sometimes they're quite free and easy about it. Sometimes they're not. But you found that there's a lot of people, even who, because it's the North, and I'm going to say this, people are nice.
Yeah.
You know, so they'll tell you. And even if they said, well, listen, love, I'm going to vote, I'm a Labour voter, but I'm going to tell you this. And a lot of them said this, right? I didn't prompt them or anything. They said, well, basically, Andy Burnham's just using us. And they don't like that. And I'd say something like, well, that's just machine politics, isn't it? It says, yeah, well, it's not good enough, is it? So I'm undecided now. So there's a lot of that, yeah? So I don't think the numbers for Labour are as hard as they would, because Labour's a very highly developed, even though they're not really Blairites, a lot of them anymore, because it's full of, you've got like a kind of Green faction, you've got like a Maurice Glasman faction with McSweeneyites and so on, Shabana now. And you've got like, you know, the kind of old Blairites still left. You know, Burnham's a bit of Blairite.
He's just talking
and,
politics,
you know, that's
right
the kind
now,
of thing you've got. Like, you've got a collection of factions.
I just threw it in
and
there.
they don't really agree with each other either. So there's a kind of internal power struggle going on. But, like, they're still very good at this kind of electioneering. So they're not going to tell you that, you know, their vote's softer than it really is. But, like, what I think what they're doing is they're showing you the people that would traditionally vote Labour as the actual lead figure. But when you talk to those people on the doorstep, they are much more hesitant to commit to voting Labour now because they think they're being used. And they've said, well, what's he going to do for us? He's done nothing for Wigan whilst he's been the mayor, you know.
They didn't get the £2 bus fares.
There's a sense that this is just a cynical move as a career progression for a man who isn't interested in them, which is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And again, you know, if you're
let's talk less
white
politics and more
sense of duty to them, to their people, to the nation.
But how will the machine turn against it?
Well, you see, I think that what you've begun to see is that because Restore's there and we have policies that are clearly set out, we're not going to deflect from them, there's not going to be any softening of the position on these, it's been well thought out. And Restore are beginning to be very worried, I think.
So I want to talk about Restore a little bit more, but also I want to talk about reform, because there was a period of time, like, I just hate the establishment. I just generally hate establishment, authority, people in charge, people telling me what to do. I wasn't very good at school at listening to people. I don't like it.
Did you get good at being insubordinate?
I did. I've always been a bit of a rebel. Listened to punk rock and skateboarded. Just, you know, I was just one of those kinds. So I like telling people with unearned authority to fuck off, basically. And the reason I really hate the current political class is that, as I commonly say on Twitter, every 5 years we have a personality contest and we elect the most unimpressive people to make the most consequential decisions for our country.
Well, that's machine politics.
Of course, but you look at this...
Which is evil, by the way.
Oh, I agree. I mean, and Ian Dunn wrote this great book, How Westminster Works and Why It Doesn't, just exposing the incompetence and stupidity of these people. And you look at, I mean, Keir Starmer to me is, I'm sure people say he's a good guy. I just see a beige, unimpressive man with no
obstacle. If you've got a project where you want to make this international standard political economic order the only thing in the world that has no competing explanatory power, then you've got to get rid of institutions and beliefs and traditions and culture and religion that stand in that way. So I try and get people to understand that that was the idea, that what you're really looking at is you're not really looking at what people call woke. You're not really looking at people who genuinely believe in progressive causes. If you look at it all, what the actions are at scale, economically, politically, and socially, it is to produce an internationally standard culture. It's to standardize the globe under one system, one ruling elite that has one set of beliefs and one, if you like, placeless architecture, which you can see emerging around you, that translates somewhere into everywhere and therefore nowhere.
Like an international bourgeoisie.
An international nowhere land.
Whatever. Yeah, it sounds like an international dystopia. look, I can get into this stuff in more depth. The only point I'm making, and I wasn't picking, the core clips because he's talking about politics specifically, and he's not, but he doesn't offer really when he's talking any solutions to people. It's just a broken system. It's a uniparty. It's all the standard talking points. He's just regurgitating talking points, and it's just complain, complain, complain. The economy sucks. The debt spiraling out of control. All the standard grievances that you're hearing in all these countries. I tire of it, but I'm going to show you that what they're promising, what they're promoting, is not what they're telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts before we get into that?
Well, I'd say that this guy, if Nietzsche would be here, he would tell you that he's an absolutist absurd.
Well, he's a Christian. He's a cultural Christian nationalist, is what he is. That's what he writes for. That's what he writes. That's what he advocates for. He's a cultural Christian nationalist, not an ethno-Christian nationalist, cultural. So it's a little bit different. But the point here is that these guys claim that they are, say, like, against digital ID and facial recognition. You heard Rupert Lowe talking about deporting people, right? These same themes keep popping up, whether it's in the Trump administration, whether it's in Alberta separatism. It is one of the core issues for all of them. There's some of these issues and concerns are valid, as we've, in my opinion, people have some valid concerns because of the culture shock, because of the impacts that it has on communities when it goes too far, right? But how you deal with it is important.
Mm.
So let me just begin to show you here. They say that they're against, then they promote this in their plan. I showed you the Alberta Prosperity Project plan. These guys also have a plan at Restore Britain, not Reform, which is the Nigel Farage group. These guys have started their own. This is Restore Britain. They have a plan, and I've got the whole section, the PDF open here on mass deportations, which is just one plank in their policy plan. And it's an important plank because it really forms the backbone of the whole thing. And so, as I say, you see it in even, this is inspired, really, they say, by Trump 2.0, not the first Trump administration, this one, Trump 2.0. And in this document that I just showed you, and I've highlighted some of the quotes from it, it's inspired in many ways by the second Trump administration. They call for a hostile environment to encourage self-deportations, combined with somewhere in the region of 150 to 200,000 forced deportations a year. They say, we focus first on fostering a culture of voluntary returns. What do you think that means, Ian?
Voluntary return. Well, I'll say out loud where I come from and say, look, deport me, please. I don't belong here.
Yeah, why would you? If they're creating a hostile environment, it means they're going to harass people. That's what it means. They're going to get the brown shirts out and go hunting people down and just making life miserable for them. They're going to make it hard to get a job. They're not going to make it pleasant to live there. They're going to make your life hard. They won't provide any support, no aid, no comfort in any way. They view you as an invader, as an enemy. You have to leave, and we don't want to deport you. We want you to just leave on your own. Don't go away. mad, just go away. Basically is what they're saying. Okay. So they want to create a hostile environment. Some people would applaud that. Whatever. In other words, they're not going to treat people nicely. They're going to say, get the hell out of here, you. And then they're going to make it okay to be a bigot, is basically what that means, in my view. Okay. That's what they're saying. Removal of laws and man-made rights. So again, this is what's written in the plan. In part 1, we call for the removal of these obstacles as a prerequisite to restoring national sovereignty. We view such laws as man-made mechanisms that can and must be changed in the interests of the British people. There's some actual truth to that because, you see, Britain doesn't have a constitution. Did you know that?
No, I thought they had one.
No, they do not. What they have is a collection of legal precedents over time. This is probably why some people in the States in particular are confused about Canada. We do have a constitution. In Britain, they do not. They have a lot of documents and laws written over time and legal precedents and legal rulings that have established their legal system. And then that loosely creates the equivalent sort of a constitution. But because of that, their rights legally really do come from man, not so much from God. As a result, he is telling the truth here. They see these laws as man-made, especially laws governing things like sovereignty and immigration, but they don't want to honor those laws or respect them. They're just going to change them the way they want to change them to get whatever they want. In other words, they're going to do away with rights. No rights, no trials. Among the objectives of the changes we recommend are to relieve the state of any duty to support asylum seekers unless they cooperate with a ramped-up process of detention and eventual removal, the abolition of non-detention-related accommodation centers, and time-consuming immigration tribunals, and an end to the Equality Act. What does that mean? It means that the Restore Party people, they want to absolve, like, the state doesn't have any responsibility to treat anyone with any dignity. They don't have to provide any support. It doesn't matter if people live or die. They have no obligation to provide even humanitarian support of any kind to even asylum seekers, people fleeing to their country because maybe their country is being bombed or they're being persecuted or they're being hunted by terrorists. They don't care. And they want a ramped up process of detention and removal so that they don't have to put them up in like any kind of actual housing or anything. They just want to get them the hell out of there. That's why they want to abolish non-detention related accommodation centers, which is to say, you know, if you got so many people coming in, you don't have space. We've seen that here. It goes too far. You end up putting them up in hotels or whatever, but they don't want to provide any housing of any kind unless it's basically in a detention center, like you putting them in jail or basically in concentration camps is what a lot of people would refer to it as. And actually, and I'm not exaggerating, like I hate to use the phrase concentration camps, but even here tonight, maybe I can show you. Yeah, right here.
Like we are in one.
Look at what has been going on. People are not aware of the scale of what's going on with Trump and his deportation program. Like, look at the size of this place. They have been buying up warehouses to detain people, tens of thousands of them in single facilities. They've got so many of them, they're selling some of them off, not all of them, not by a long shot. ICE selling mega warehouses purchased for mass detention. Look at the size of this place.
Wow.
That's in Salt Lake City. Photograph from April 9th. This is what they've been buying up. Airplanes to fly them out. Kristi Noem, no longer the head of that department, right? But Mark Wayne Mullen, just kind of a simpleton. It's true. He's in charge of the place now, but they're making some changes. They're going less visible. They don't want as much attention focused on them because of all the negativity that resulted from their attempt to turn their deportation program into a reality social media program. Excuse me. But it's massive. And this is where Restore is getting there. They're inspired by it all. Largely because they're just ignoring the, even basic human rights, certainly international rights that have been established for migrants, immigrants, right? Illegal or otherwise. But even under U.S. Constitution, illegal immigrants have like a minimal set of rights so that they can be treated properly. And, I'm going to tell you something right now that a lot of people are probably not even aware of. We got to be really careful again, because this is a test, Ian. You look at what happened to the detainees during the Iraq War sent to Guantanamo Bay. Do you know how horrific the torture became?
I heard of
you know
it.
how bad it was under the
know,
Bush administration at that time?
I heard of it. It was ugly. It was disgusting. A lot of people died. A lot of people did actually, basically became dismembered at some point.
Horrific. They I mean, waterboarding was one of the most prominent, or one of the things that got the most attention in the media. But they did things that were so unspeakable the media didn't want to talk about it, like rectal feeding. That means, do you know what that is? You can figure out what that is, right? It means you get dinner, but you do not get it through your mouth, man.
No, it's basically it's backording your dinner, if I can give you the drift.
All right, so this is where things can go, and because especially if people are, if their rights are taken away or denied. And when you're sent to a place like Guantanamo and you're called a terrorist, you have no rights. As soon as they designate you a terrorist, you don't have any rights anymore. And that's what Restore is doing with this immigration recalibration of the legislation. And they're saying that basically Britain isn't going to take any more at all. Because there's this safe third country rule or agreement among Western countries, where if you have immigrants coming to your country, they're supposed to, the first safe country that they come to is the one that is supposed to take them in. And this party is saying that Britain is surrounded by a bunch of other countries. So they're not going to take any more. They want all the countries around them to take them in and be responsible for them. Because they say in the document, given that every one of Britain's immediate neighbors is presently classed as a safe country, this would effectively mean scrapping our whole asylum system. So they're not going to take any more. Oh, and then they say that they're against digital ID and they're going to protect British citizens. And you won't have to, they're not going to use digital ID for you, but they are going to use digital ID to track immigrants and determine if they're illegal or legal or whatever. So e-visas will be used as the only acceptable proof of legal residency for non-British citizens, with strict audits on gig economy platforms where illegal workers thrive. So that means that if you're in the country and you're an immigrant, if you are there legally, they're going to issue you an e-visa and basically a digital ID card.
Yep.
Okay, or they're going to chip you or whatever in electronic visa. To work, you have to show this digital ID. To move about, you're going to have to show your digital ID everywhere you go. But it's only for non-British citizens, and it's going to be used for when you go to work, even if you try to rent a place to live, anything you do, they track you at this. You have to show it everywhere. This is digital ID tracking applied to a human being. And they're saying it's only for non-British citizens, but here's where the rubber hits the road. And this is why they are lying to people. They're lying to you because this normalizes the use of digital ID. In addition to that, it will apply to British citizens, because if you show up someplace like to go to work, you forget your ID at home, right? They're going to say, show me your ID. Oh, I'm a British citizen. Well, show me your passport or show me your ID. You can whip out whatever, a driver's license or your birth certificate and some sort of paper to prove it. If you don't have that, they're going to demand to see your e-visa. If you can't produce that, you suddenly have no rights. They can take you and do whatever the hell they want with you because you can't prove who you are. And you might think that's hyperbole or exaggeration, but that is exactly where this can and likely will go, especially given the volume of people that they want to actually deport. It also, and I'll just illustrate for you here as we move along, why this is downloading responsibility and accountability onto private citizens from the government, just like they did during the pandemic. Here it is, download enforcement to employers, right to work checks. This is checking on people. It's like, show me your papers. Show me your papers, right? Show me your
That's
ID.
exactly what I wanted to go to. Yeah.
And they're downloading this onto employers, and they're going to download it onto merchants just like they did during the pandemic. Keep in mind, this is coming from Restore, the very party that is appealing to the exact group of voters who have been opposed to these kinds of restrictions, these kind of laws, mandates, lockdowns, digital tracking, digital ID, overreach of government. These are the guys who are going to be doing it to you in a really more serious way than the existing government. It says right to work checks should be expanded to contractors and the self-employed. You got to check on yourself and report, particularly in sectors that are known to serve as illegal hotspots like construction and hospitality. Basically, they're going to send, their goons down there to go around and check everybody's papers and start rounding people up. And if you can't show your e-visa, if they don't, whatever, they're going to be throwing you in the back of a truck. Non-compliant employers must face heavy fines or jail. Future government contracts should also be handed out on the strict condition that private companies enlisted for their services can demonstrate compliance with the hostile environment. This is part of the hostile environment. Hostile not just to the immigrants, Ian, to the employers, to the people who hire people, job creators, business owners. And they're downloading the responsibility for enforcement onto private citizens, just like they did during the pandemic. You go to a grocery store, you've got some poor kid or an elderly person at the front door as a greeter saying, "Where's your mask?" Okay, it's this exact same bloody thing from these people.
You know what's the crazy part of it? It's that during COVID, okay, you have the podcasters of everywhere you want to find it that was looking at those restrictions, that was making analogy with 1930s, the show me your paper kind of situation that we were getting during COVID. And now they're doing it to you without even asking question. I mean, how preposterous is that?
It's awful. This is terrible. And they're downloading enforcement to landlords. They're not giving anybody a chance to even become a productive citizen in any way. They're just saying, in relation to housing, they say we demand right to rent checks, like to check up, not like a check of payment. You're going to run checking on everybody at tenancy start with considerable penalties and potential asset seizure for landlords who fail to comply. That means they're turning landlords into snitches. Right? If you can't, you're not allowed to rent to somebody unless they show you the e-visa. They can prove that they have the right to rent. There's no freedom there. And as I say, man, like you let them treat people like this and they can do it to you. And it's not just the immigrant. Look at the way they're treating the landlord. They're saying, landlord, you have to be an immigration cop. You have an obligation, a duty to report. You're not allowed to even just shut up and say nothing. You have to become involved in enforcement and report people. Snitch on your neighbor. That's what that is.
And this is in UK. So imagine if that comes in Alberta, guys. Are you going to love it? No.
There are elements of this in the APP plan too. Weaponized domestic banking system. In banking, this is the top titles are mine, okay, to explain what they're getting at here. But they're gonna freeze bank accounts, confiscate money from people that they deem to be illegals. In banking, we propose, and they're going to use biometric checkups for accounts and closing any with a valid status. Like there won't be a trial. You don't have any rights. You don't get to, go to court. They're just going to do it. And there won't be an appeal. It says a remittance tax on countries that refuse to take back their own citizens should also be levied to raise deportation funds and pressure uncooperative governments. You don't take these people into your country. You don't take them back or take these people that we're sending to you. We're going to sanction you. We're going to tax you, this country. We're going to confiscate your funds. We're going to use the SWIFT system or whatever to freeze even international bank accounts and turn this into an international enforcement tool. Digital social shamings and humiliations. Says we also envision an app, like a digital app or portal offering reintegration aid to be promoted through PR campaigns and embassy 12 executive summary partnerships. What are they getting at here? Publicizing enforcement and embedding support in community rules will boost compliance. In other words, you're looking for a migrant, they're going to put pictures up everywhere. It'll be like a most wanted list, or people who don't comply. This guy here didn't help us find somebody. We're going to put their picture up on social media and tell people all about them. We're going to publicize that this guy is an immigration scumbag. This landlord didn't help us. This guy's on the run. Mandatory cross-agency digital tracking, integration, and snitch lines. They say here, this is their words, data integration is critical. Councils, NHS, and other agencies should be required by law to share information that assists in identifying illegal immigrants. Employers, landlords, and banks must report suspicious activity. A public reporting portal, together with rewards for successful whistleblowing, as they call it, snitching, should be brought online to encourage help from the law-abiding people of Britain. Are you getting the picture here?
Wow.
You got to report on your neighbor. The bank's got to report everything you do. There's no privacy. They're using digital data integration to track everybody. Everything you do is seen by the government, no matter what you do with your banking, however much money you put in there, whatever you've got. Now, governments have access to a lot, if not most of that information as it is, but they're going to take it to a whole new level here. And if there's any level of government that doesn't agree with what they're doing, tough potatoes, they're gonna make it mandatory for all government agencies at all levels to integrate with their digital tracking systems. This from the Restore Party that says they're against digital IDs.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What other country has the same system? China.
Yeah, to a pretty great degree. That's quite true. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
No.
Warehousing of immigrants for profit, private concentration camps. Private companies will be contracted to run these huge facilities, similar to the one I showed you that Trump is using, which is the same business model. These private contractors will be setting up concentration camps / prisons for these detainees on government contracts, and they'll be making big bank. They'll be making money, just like in the United States, where their prisons are run by private companies. So there's an incentive there on their part to generate as many detainees as possible. And the people making money, it's a whole new industry, baby. So there's, I would say, a twisted incentive there to do as much of this as you possibly can. Human welfare be damned. Billions to fund. They say we expect this to require expenditure in the tens of billions over 5 years. It ain't free. They say they're going to save a lot of money, but in order to save a lot of money, they're going to be spending tens of billions of dollars to do it this way. Okay, maybe you'll save money. I don't know. I don't believe any of the numbers they're putting out in their report, because I think they're doing it from a really slanted perspective. They've got their political objectives here, and they'll massage those numbers to say whatever they want them to say, but they are acknowledging it'll take billions of taxpayer dollars to fund it. And they view laws as mischief, especially any kind of international laws that might get in the way, but even domestic laws under British law that hold them back from moving ahead with these plans. They just see them as mischief. And they say, despite the fashionable focus on the mischief caused by international law, many of the legal obstacles to mass deportations are in fact homegrown. What's their solution? They're just going to change the laws to just remove people's rights. And as they're doing that to people that they say are illegal, they're eroding the rights of all British citizens. It says here, like, eliminate restrictions on indefinite detention, no habeas corpus. That's my headline, my words. They don't make specific mention to habeas corpus, but that's what they're doing. They're suspending it. They plan to. They say certain parts of S12, some of which sought to overturn 2 of the 4 so-called Hardiel-Singh principles while putting the other 2 on a statutory footing. All 4 principles are rooted in a common law ruling from 1983, 20, and applying consequential limits to the detention of immigrants, including illegals. They present a clear obstacle to mass deportations. Reform UK have vowed to create powers of detention that would be free of such constraints. 21, they go on. So Reform kind of applying things here too and calling for changes on this front. But Restore going even further. Basically what they're getting at here, Ian, is these laws that they're referring to, they pertain to some precedent-setting legal cases. In this case, this particular case they're mentioning, going back to 1983, that prohibit the government from taking a human being, putting them in a prison with no
representation,
no court appearances, no trials, no rights, no arraignment. Like, you get arrested as a citizen, they take you to court. You have to have an arraignment, usually within 24 hours or so. You have to be taken before a judge. They have to show the court the body, that's you, a human being, habeas corpus, so that they can't just they can't just disappear people. They can't just take people off the streets and make them disappear, kill them, or just send them off to some gulag in another country someplace where you're never seen from or heard from again. They're not allowed to do that, but they're going to change the law so that they can. No rights, no trial, no appeal, no right to a lawyer, no phone call, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You're just out of here. That's what they're saying here. Habeas corpus, to hell with it. We don't care. They're going to change the law. And they can put you in jail for as long as they want. Forever, for life.
Wow.
And never have to take you before a judge. That's what that really means. That's what those court cases were about. Back in 83, they're like, you can arrest people, you can do things to people, but even people who you deem to be here illegally, you still have to treat them with dignity. Expanded use of facial recognition tech by employers and increased fines for non-compliant employers. Oh, they're against facial recognition, right? Facial ID, they're against that. They're against digital ID. No, they're not. This is tech creep. They're using technology, mass technology combined with AI in order to track people. That's what they're pushing for here. They're going to install facial recognition cameras at all places of employment. And everybody coming in, this is not restricted to just non-British citizens, because it won't work unless they're scanning everybody's face. says the level of deterrent must therefore be increased. Initial fines must be dramatically uplifted to £200,000 for a first breach and £400,000 for each subsequent breach. These are fines against the employers. At this level, for small businesses, the risk effectively becomes one of liquidation, because they're going to go after not just big factories and corporate employers. They're going to go after small mom and pop convenience stores, restaurants, laundromats, any place where so-called illegal immigrants might go get a job. Construction sites everywhere. They'll want facial recognition and a duty to report. They go on and say, moreover, responsible company directors must face indefinite disqualification for dictatorship rather than temporary bans.
Wow.
In 2023-24, there were 1,222 directors disqualified, many as a result of breaching immigration laws. They're going to wrap that stuff up. If you detect somebody using facial recognition, you don't report it, you're going to face serious consequences as an employer. And if you're a small business owner, and you get caught with an illegal, so-called illegal, whatever that is, based on their definition, working for you, and you didn't report it, you're screwed.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
And you know what? Owners, grocery stores, everybody.
That's another thing. I mean, we know London and actually UK has been for a long time. I think it's since 2005, right after the 9/11, they decided to put like a lot of camera all around the place. I mean, there's no grid without camera where you cannot commit a crime where they can follow you up with every camera of the city. That's for sure. But now it's like 10 times fold what they're gonna do with that.
This is a digital dystopia, a police state, a surveillance state. This is what they're creating while they're telling you, no, we're opposed to it. And they're doing it through emotion by demonizing immigrants. And yes, I think that there are some legitimate concerns there, but they're dehumanizing these people, making you think of them as invaders to justify this treatment, normalizing this increased use of surveillance tech. Here they're saying no help for the homeless. Councils should be under no obligation, legal, financial, or moral, to house, assist, or prevent homelessness for illegal migrants. Instead, responsibility should fall directly on the Home Office, which can provide holding accommodation pending removal. And that means you don't help them find a place to sleep, or you don't give them a tent. You certainly don't put them up in an apartment or a hotel. No, again, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You are going straight to prison. That's what that means. Accommodation in a holding accommodation, a prison, concentration camp.
So becoming homeless now would be
is a crime.
Is a crime. Okay.
That's right. Restrict access to health care. So you get in an accident, somebody runs over you with a car, your arm gets chopped off, they're not going to help you. They say the ease with which illegal migrants are currently able to access primary and indeed secondary health care remains a significant factor behind the large unauthorized population. Okay, that can be an issue. There are other ways to deal with it than just saying, I don't care if you're dying. Okay, we're just going to let you die. You don't belong here. Don't speak English. Sorry, can't help you. Mandatory reporting for small businesses for greater digital tracking, car washes to restaurants, reporting job applicants. They say the law must be amended so that employers are required not only to deny employment, but to report the information of applicants unable to prove any legal right to work. The same obligation must be placed on landlords and letting agents who cannot verify a tenant's right to rent, as well as on financial institutions. You go in there looking for a job, somebody don't like you, they're going to report you as an illegal immigrant. You might just have immigration guys showing up on your doorstep. I don't know, all kinds of bad things can happen from this, but they're again putting all of the enforcement, the onus for enforcement on employers, even small businesses, car washes, restaurant owners, all kinds, any kind of a business. And if you don't report them, again, you can be charged with a crime. Why didn't you report this? He applied for a job. He couldn't show you his e-visa. Why didn't you report this person? Now that's a crime. They're going to track it back to you. You're screwed. You're going to be paying a big penalty. you might lose your business. Trump's model in the United States, ICE detention facilities, they say in this Restore Britain plan, that ICE detention facilities are able to hold almost 60,000 individuals, each one, 3,000% more than the size of the British estate. 154, 59, 1,500, I don't know what that number is. That's broken up from whatever they had there. 154, 59 new facilities have opened since Trump retook office. 155 America now boasts 190 such operational facilities. Okay, so there are 190 of them. It can hold as many as 60,000 apiece, I guess. In some cases, right? Because you see the size of that warehouse that I showed you. 156, 90% of facilities are operated by for-profit companies such as Geo Group and Core Civic. I think these 157 numbers, and that they're footnotes or something. All of this serves to demonstrate what can be accomplished by an incoming government with a steadfast commitment to combating illegal immigration. Oops, I lost it. Hang on.
That's crazy.
I'd lost my tab. I got to bring it back up. Hang on. Some people were happy about this. I understand the immigration issue, man. But again, like I keep saying, it's how you treat people. It's how you treat people, how you do things. You can deal with things in a constructive, positive way, or you can do things in a way that cause you to lose your soul.
Yeah, and I know some friends that, well, probably also Mavericks who wants to probably go to see their family and probably move back to UK. But reading all that, I'm scared for you guys that want to have that idea. Please stay home.
It scares me because I see where it has led in the United States to, so much division, violence, even American citizens being shot in the streets. And then the behavior of the Trump administration in response to it. It's not our fault. That person was not behaving properly at this protest and making stuff up. And just yesterday we saw an ICE agent arrested on charges of related to shooting a suspect in a leg and then lying about it. This is terrible. I don't know. It's just terrible.
Oh, we're not in a great time, I think. Humanity needs to be reminded what is being human.
And they want to create, they're not globalists. No, not at all. They're all about sovereignty, right? Horse hockey. They literally talk about creating a deportation NATO with collective lifetime bans. It says Britain should therefore initiate the first steps across Europe and the wider West to establish a collective border security coalition, a kind of deportation NATO, as it were. Its chief purpose would be to deploy collective leverage, an organized, explicit, and escalatory chain of measures from visa sanctions to lifetime re-entry, Foreign, Commonwealth, and Development Office, Statistics on International Development, Final UK. These are references to source material.
Okay, so if I do understand that right, basically, if I would go to one of those, like in England, I get deemed to be illegal. All NATO's country, all Commonwealth,
all the participating countries
will also consider me as a banned
person. You can't ever go there again. Lifetime ban. You get deported from Britain. You ain't going to any of these other EU countries ever. You're probably not coming to Canada, any other country. The United States will participate. They want the U.S. involved. You won't be able to go to any of these countries ever.
I'm Canadian, and I would be an illegal in UK, and I would probably not come back to Canada. What the
okay, that's very true. That's right. I checked it out. If you're Canadian, okay, yeah. It could definitely affect you. They want 1.8 million, maybe more. They want to deport 1.8 million people in just 2 years. That's extremely aggressive. That's a lot of rounding up.
Man, oof, my brain's hurt.
Okay, like, so, I'm just, but here's the question. Who is illegal?
They both do speak English.
Right.
Hold on. I got so bad at I got a English so bad. I'm probably going to be one of those.
Well, yes. This is the point, okay? These are the people that they will deport if you fail to integrate. That's pretty broad, vague. I was trying to get more deep. Like, what does that even mean? You're not integrating. You're deported. It's written in, all of this stuff is written in very vague, broad terms so that they can basically deport anybody they want.
Live in social housing. I mean, I live in the social housing right now, paying 25% of my revenue because I went out of street.
Yeah,
and I play with the system.
But if you're deemed to be an illegal immigrant, you're not allowed to rent anyway. And if they catch you renting in social housing, because that's maybe what you could afford, they're not going to provide you any assistance. You're not allowed to live in a government subsidized, geared to income, none of those kinds of programs. You can't live any place. This is the whole thing. They've rigged it all so that it's impossible for any kind of an immigrant to integrate anyway.
I can tell you something about the system in Canada, for example. Okay, I know because when I went to the shelter, there's a lot of that. Okay,
yeah,
you have some immigrant that comes around here that has a visa for working and whatnot, but have hard time as hell to get an apartment. Yeah. What do you think happens to them? They get to a shelter. The shelter system help them to
not allowed to stay there. Can't stay at a shelter. That's social housing. You're not allowed to do that. So if you're an illegal immigrant, you're not allowed to be homeless. You're not allowed to go to a shelter. You're not allowed to live in socialized housing of any kind. No, like at all. Right? Yep. You're not. They're going to make it hard, if not impossible, to get a job. You can't work. There's nothing. You can't. If you make any money, you can't participate in the banking system. You have to deal strictly in cash. If you try to do anything with a bank, they'll turn you in. If you try to spend it any place, they'll turn you in. If you try to work anywhere, they'll turn you in. This is the hostile environment. They're going to send people out to harass you. I'll read the list here. If you fail to integrate, that could mean just about any bloody thing. If you don't like or actively hate British culture or way of life, and then in brackets, and wish to do us harm, what does that mean? You don't like Britain? Or you don't like, you can't be critical of Britain in any, again, they can apply that in any way they want. If you refuse to work, or if you're not working, if you lose your job, okay, if the business you're working at goes out of business, you get fired, whatever. It could be for any reason. You lose your job, you're out of here. This because they're not just going to apply these standards to the first wave or the illegal immigrants, the asylum seekers, like people who show up in a boat unannounced because their country got bombed and their home got blown up. Okay, those are the people who are asylum seekers largely. You can apply whatever arguments you want, but the point is, after they're done going through those people, they're going to go to the next level, is what they're saying. And then they're going to start to look at people who are here on visas. And if they don't comply with this criteria, if they don't meet the standard, they're going to deport all those people too, not just people who arrive illegally, as they put it, but they're going to make other people illegals, because they're going to say, you don't speak English, and even though you've got the legal right now to work, you don't anymore because you're unable to speak English. Well, what's the standard for speaking English? They don't have one. Right now they do. They have a test that you can take. They don't have a test. It's arbitrary. They can just listen to you. And if your accent is too heavy, you're out of here. If you live in social. So now they're going through people, not just people who show up unannounced. These are people who have been here for a while, people who have been working in the community that could have been here for years. Then they go down. If you're living in social housing, you got to leave. If you're claiming benefits of any kind of social benefits, you're gone. If you commit any crime, including lesser offenses, you're out of here. You could, I guess, get a speeding ticket and be deported. It could be for anything, literally anything. It's arbitrary. If they don't like you, if your neighbor doesn't like you, they can report you and say that, I don't know, you peed on his front lawn or something. Make something up. You're out of here. Because it's even for lesser offenses. Could be for virtually anything, Ian. Commits any crime. Now, dual national, where citizenship can be revoked in the national interest. That means if you're living in Britain and you have dual citizenship, which is quite common, right? Especially in Canada. If you're a Canadian and you're living in Britain as a dual national, they'll deport you if they just don't like you. You've got a citizenship in another country, you're gone because you're not completely devoted to whatever the logic is behind it. That's what they're going to do. So anybody with dual citizenship, I think of a friend of mine who has many friends actually who have dual citizenship in Canada. And just because you have that, you'd be deported. And yet here's the irony. These separatists out in Alberta, they think that you're going to have dual citizenship. You get to keep your Canadian citizenship and you can be part of Alberta, but only if you're born here. Only if you're born here.
How crazy is that?
And if you're not born here, then you just have to stay Canadian and you don't get to vote anymore. From high risk red list countries, if you're from any of the countries they don't like, you're out of there. So it could be Afghanistan, I would imagine, any of the countries like Iran. If you're from there, you're out of here. Afghan scheme arrivals, temporary refuge only, to be removed and then relocated. If you breach your time limited visa, ILR conditions, residency conditional on contribution and good character. Essentially, they get to just make up the rules. I'm seeing this as they go along. They're just making the stuff up as they go along, man. And the strategy is you make life so unbearable, you make it impossible for people to even exist. And you just get rid of them. And if you can, it's not about self-deporting it. Then at that point, it becomes escaping. Now you have to escape from Britain, hopefully before the immigration people pick you up and throw you in a mass detention center or concentration camp where you don't know really how you're going to be treated. Well, you won't have any rights. You can be kept there indefinitely, treated who God knows how. They're not under any obligation to provide any kind of accommodation. So honestly, if they change the law that way, they don't know how to feed you. And if they don't, people die, they don't care. They won't be held accountable because they have no obligation to take care of people. Don't tell me that these guys have the goddamn answer. They don't give a flying fart about human beings. These people are terrible. Frank Reich, okay?
I'm disgusted.
No, that guy is not. He's not a nice guy. He's just a fork-tongued serpent who's pretending to have answers to very complex problems, some of which are the result of the actions of Britain and Canada and the United States and our countries, our people, our governments that we have to accept responsibility for, because we as people in democratic nations have to be responsible for what our elected officials do, not just wash our hands of responsibility and accountability. We have to vote correctly. And if they're not doing their jobs, we hold them accountable. That's why we live in a free country. These people don't give a damn. because they are the politicians. They are the people who are the authoritarians. They're the ones doing it to us while pretending they've got the solution. They created the goddamn problem. Now they're pretending they have the solution, but the solution is to lock us down, take away our rights by taking away those rights of those other people who are the most vulnerable. And by doing that, they're screwing us all over.
Yep.
Wake the hell up.
You know, guys, and Rick, you're right. You think that COVID was fun? Well, wait a minute. I got a fridge to sell you to the Eskimos.
Well, these people are worse than the people who they're pointing their fingers at. And the people who have the power now, there are problems. But these people are way worse. They're actually making it easier for the other people to do more things to us. They're normalizing all of it. They're enabling all of it while they're telling you that they're trying to protect us, and people are marching headlong into it. And a lot of them thinking, I'm awake, I'm aware, I figured it out, I'm a critical thinker. I'm not listening to those people over there. This Frank Reich guy's got the answer. Rupert Lowe's got the answer. Nigel Farage has the answer. Just get rid of all these people. All our problems will be solved. Oh, I see. I've heard that story before. We've seen it in history. Demonize that group of people over there. That's because when they do that, the people who really are causing the problems escape accountability because they've shifted all the blame for all the crap that they've done onto that group of people who never had any power to do anything to you to begin with. And they're just there because their houses got blown up.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. Hello, Alberta. Hello, United States. Hello, Canada. Hello, frickin' Britain. Wake up. These guys are dangerous.
I'd
You're
say
worried
even
about
wake
AI?
up Quebec.
Oh my God, Ian.
Yes, Quebec wants also to separate to a mini degree. There's a few of us there that wants to separate. So yeah, wake up, guys. You don't want to separate, and you don't want that shit.
Well, we're against digital IDs. Yeah, that's right in their policy plan. And then on the next page, they're talking about using facial recognition, e-visas, and but it's only for those people over there. No, man, it won't work unless it's for everybody. That's the point.
That's the technocratic perfectionist thing. It's the perfect technocrat speech. Basically,
you can't restrict.
Effective. It's for your own good, and it's safe.
Mass surveillance and by downloading the responsibility onto employers, that's the way they get around any kind of rights that people have as well, because it becomes a condition of employment. You want it or shopping. You want to go shopping here? Show me your papers. Show me your digital ID. Or they're just going to scan your face. And they'll be scanning you. I mean, there's security cameras up all over the place. That is your facial recognition. They don't have to put up special scanners. They take your picture. It's feeding into the internet, or the matrix as it is now. And they've got AI processing things all the time. You think they're not tracking you? It's going on right now. Only they're going to weaponize it.
Hey,
they're going to find you.
We're being tracked right now by being on the camera right now. And they know what we're doing. They're listening to us.
Yeah. That's exactly right, man. I don't know.
It's disgusting, but wow, man. We're really in a dystopia.
They don't have the answer. These guys are the goddamn problem.
Ugh. Corporate dystopia. Sorry, a technocrat dystopia.
Yeah, until recently, I wasn't paying much attention to them. But because my friend sent me some stuff, I was like, oh, what's this? But I dig. I dig a bit.
Oh, you did good.
You don't have to dig very hard, but nobody does. Very few people. And again, back to Alberta. I mean, just this is There's no way people will vote for this if they know that this is what these people actually want. No bloody way. I can't see it. Who the hell would vote in favor of breaking up the country so that, especially if you weren't born there? I'm going to vote for separation. I wasn't born here, but I'm going to get a better deal. Yeah, you can't vote, right? You can't become a citizen of the new country. This is stupid.
Alberta doing the same thing that UK basically. UK
Alberta
asking
for only real Albertans.
Alberta's asking people to deport themselves before they tell you that you can vote or you have no Albertan right because you don't belong in Alberta. But they'll keep you, right? But in UK, well, if you don't belong here, better deport yourself before the NHS get to get your ass.
And if you're vaccinated, they really don't want you. They want to get rid of you. And out in Alberta, okay, they haven't gone as far with the digital IDs and the EVs and stuff because they haven't thought that through as far on the deportation issue. However, on all fronts, they state right in the Alberta Prosperity Plan that they do want to use, they're planning on using artificial intelligence, and they make reference to it saying that they deliberately avoided government and business cost savings when they were calculating, savings and how much taxpayers would save and how much more efficient the government would be. They're saying we didn't factor in artificial intelligence yet because they weren't sure how much of an impact that would have. So all the calculations they've made are based on the current system, but they say they avoided government and business cost savings while developing the plan, which could come from simplified tax codes, regulations, rule changes, law changes, they get what they want, and a more modern use of technology, including artificial intelligence, which we believe are significant, perhaps as high as 50%. So they think that by using artificial intelligence combined with simplified tax codes, whatever, they're going to save 50% on government administrative costs. They're going to use AI.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think it has any overlap with the Synapse data center that is to be built in Alberta? Because I think that we have a Trojan horse here.
I wouldn't say so necessarily, Ian. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, those AI data centers will be used. There will be some public access through the internet for tech companies, even probably individuals, and all kind, and probably government as well for various uses. They'll probably be making use of it, but I wouldn't say it's being built specifically for government application. Research, Bitcoin,
although it could
digital
be
currency
also
mining
used for it.
They'll be using those tech centers, those AI data centers to for God knows what, honestly, at the end of the day, because they're using AI for military applications, military research.
Yeah, there's a lot of military application where they want to have those AI center, but that's where I think that there's also probably more than meets the eyes from what we know. So those data center might be also used for that research or that.
It is a private company.
Recognition.
They'll be giving access to governments, corporations, into anybody that pays will be able to get access to their system and use it in whatever fashion it's capable of hosting.
Yeah, that's Synapse. That's Synapse Incorporated from, if I do remember well, the name of the guy I'm trying to remember because I had it on the tip of my tongue. Van Helder. But yeah, this first name doesn't come around. But anyway, this is all attached to the same situation in the US where it was one of the AI company. I try to remember which one. Basically, they wanted to have a military access. They didn't want it. The government basically went to Synapse, and Synapse decided to get along with that. So Jason Elder is the name of the CEO of Synapse.
Well, these AI data centers, they're proliferating, right? They're popping up all over the place. It's yeah, I think it's dangerous. I have I laugh, but I actually enjoy the conversations. I have these gentlemen that show up at my doorstep. They're Jehovah's Witnesses, right? And they come here about once a week. And I usually spend half an hour, 45 minutes with them at my front door every time they come. They came today. And we had a long conversation, and AI came up as one of the conversations. And I wish I'd been able to record it and share it with you. But the worldview they have is substantially different than mine. And he wanted to talk about AI, but as I was speaking to him, I could tell he really didn't understand it either. But his attitude was, we don't care. We're just not going to pay any attention to it because God will just take care of everything, so we don't need to worry about it. And I was looking at him and I was like, you need to start to care. It's coming for everybody, man. Like, it's coming. I understand putting your faith in God. I have a lot of friends, Christian friends, who say the same thing, right? Like evangelical Christians, and you're all saying the same thing. Just give it to God. Yeah. Well, I still believe we have free will. We have free agency. And he said, well, then what's the point of life? I said, well, to live and to be the best person you can be, and to use the gift from God of free will and free agency to make the world a better place, to make the most of your life. That's what the purpose of life is.
You know, you gave him an existential kind of philosophical
he's so nice. They're nicest people. They're very friendly. Oh my God. They probably just want me to go and put money in the collection plate. Church. Okay. No, they're very nice. And I really enjoy the conversations. But today I turned him into a pretzel because it didn't matter what he was saying to me. He could not keep up. And the other gentleman who was with him, I had him convinced. He was on my side, and he's from their church, right? So in 30 minutes, I had him all twisted around. And well, he's normally trying to leave me with something to think about so we can discuss it in more detail the next time he comes back. I said, you think about that, and we'll come back and we'll resume this next week. So it's a fun conversation. I love it. I'd like to have those guys on the program. But what a great conversation that was, all about AI at the doorstep, at my front stoop.
Little story, kind of similar. About 20 years ago, I was playing Gothic. I mean, all the black stuff and whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
I walk in the park, see my mom. On my way, there's this Jehovah Witness coming to me and talk to me about, the good books and whatnot. And I go to ask him, you know what? What if I tell you that Jesus was actually the first man that was, say, the equivalent of what we have today as civil rights advocate? And he looked at me like, that's interesting. And then I gave him what I thought. And seriously, that's not the conversation where he wanted to go, because he was the one going back home asking probably his master some question or some answer to that, because there's probably something that came out of that mouth that just made him question everything.
Well, my friend, I think we've probably covered all the bases tonight. This is a long program tonight.
Yeah.
Again, but
3 hour, 20 minutes.
Holy smokes.
That's a new record for me and Maverick.
Yeah, well, don't say I didn't warn you. I said you get me started, and you know what I'm like. And here we went. But yeah. Thank you all the Mavericks for hanging in there tonight.
I went all the way with Rick, and it was interesting because It's always an interesting conversation I have here, for sure.
And if you disagree with me, that's okay. You can send me emails. You can send me hate mail. I get lots of that. I won't let. I'll let that roll off my back. But yeah, thank you everybody for spending the last 3 hours and 21 minutes with us.
That was a long ride, guys, but hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I didn't make any of this stuff up. Everything shared with you tonight, researched, verified, attributed, referenced from APP and Restore Britain Party documents. It ain't
my
me.
Notes. Even my notes
from Dragon's Notes, Ian. Yeah, I'm not lying to you, but lots of other people are. I'm trying not to. I can't say I'm getting everything right all the time. I do make mistakes, but I'm always trying to get us closer to the truth, whatever that is. And with that, Ian, I'll let you wrap it up here by saying, catch you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern on
The Flip Side.
Welcome to the Matrix. Scrolling all night, chasing the high. Everything's fake, psychedelic sky. They said you're free, that's the game. Different screen, always the same. You are what you believe, that's the key. Lock your mind, lose reality. If you believe it, it comes alive. Truth gets buried, nobody survives. The world is watching, brains are washing. Living the lie, glazed over eyes, hypnotized, zombified. Living the lie, no way to hide, truth denied. Switch it off, take back your mind. Living the lie. Same old story, louder now. Truth gets lost inside the crowd. Think you're awake, it's in your head. Different cage, dream is dead. The world is watching, brains are washing. Living the lie, glazed over eyes, hypnotized, zombified. Living the lie, no way to hide, truth denied. Switch it off, take back your mind. Living the lie. Break it down, shut it out, turn it off right now. Break the screen, cut the feed, take back what you need. Living the lie, glazed over eyes, hypnotized, zombified. Living the lie, too tired to fight. Wake up now, take it back tonight. Living the lie, living the lie. No more. Exit the Matrix.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.